Moscow I came seeking fortune, but they're making me work till I'm dead. The bourgeoisie have it so easy. The Tsar's putting gold on his bread. The people of Moscow are hungry, but think what a feast there could be if we could create a socialist state that cared for the people like me.
I am the man who arranges the blocks that descend upon me from up above. They come down and I spin them around till they fit in the ground like hand in glove. Sometimes it seems that to move blocks is fine and the lines will be formed as they fall. Then I see that I have misjudged it. I should not have nudged it after all. Can I have a long one, please? Why must these infernal blocks tease? I am the man who arranges the blocks that continue to fall from up above. Come Muscovite, let the workers unite, a collective regime of peace and love. I work so hard in arranging the blocks, but the landlord and taxman bleed me dry. But the workers will rise, we will not compromise, for we know that the old regime must die. Long live Lenin, kill the Tsar. We salute the sickle and saw. I am the man who arranges the blocks that continue to fall from up above. The food on your plate now belongs to the state, a collective regime of peace and love. I have no choice in arranging the blocks, and the Bolshevik rule, what they say goes. The rule of the game is we all are the same, and my blocks must create unbroken rows. Long live Stalin, he loves you. Sing these words or you know what he'll do. I am the man who arranges the blocks that are made by the men in Kazakhstan. They come 2 weeks late and they don't tessellate, but we're working to Stalin's 5-year plan. I am the man who arranges the tanks that will make all the Nazis keep away. The Führer is dead and Europe is red. Let us point all our guns at the USA. We shall live forevermore. We can start a nuclear war. I am the man who arranges the blocks that are building a highly secret base. Hip hip hurrah for the USSR, we are sending our men to outer space. I work so hard in arranging the blocks, but each night I go home to my wife in tears. What's the point of it all when you're building a wall and in front of your eyes it disappears? Pointless work for pointless pay. This is one game I shall not play. I am the man who arranges the blocks. But tomorrow I think I'll stay in bed. The winter is cold, I've got plenty of gold, and I'm standing in line for a loaf of bread. Maybe we'd be better off if we brought down Gorbachev. I am the man who arranges the blocks that continue to fall from up above. The markets are free, so much money for me. Tell me, why should I care for peace and love? The markets are free, so much money for me. Tell me, why should I care for peace and love? Peace and love. Peace and love. And now the wall is down, the Marxists frown, there's foreign shops all over town. When in Red Square, well, don't despair, there's Levi's and McDonald's there. The US gave us crystal meth, and Yeltsin drank himself to death. But now that Putin's put the boot in, who'll get in our way? So we reject free enterprise, and once again the left will rise. Prepare the flags to be unfurled, 'cause we're seceding from the world. We shall regain the Georgian soil, we shall obtain the Arctic oil, we shall arrange the blocks and toil forever and a day.
I love that song. We listened to that in my AP World History class back in high school, because one of the students pointed it out to the teacher, and the teacher liked it. Hello, everyone, and let me officially welcome you to the first episode of Tankie Watch. Now, this is going to be rougher. By the way, we're at 40% of the level 2 hype train with only like 30 seconds left. We're so close. This is going to be rougher than Chud Watch, because I've been doing Chud Watch for a while now, so I sort of know the regular Chuds. And I kind of know what to expect from them, but we haven't done Tankie Watch. We've done like 1 or 2 videos ever. So today's going to be sort of a pilot in that I don't know what we're going to watch or who we're going to watch or why, but people sent me a bunch of different Tankies. And we're going to kind of peruse and see what is interesting and what isn't, and sort of start to form the spine of the show, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Figuring out what we'll be doing for Tankie Watch. So it's going to be a little less structured today, but it should still be fun. Let me get through these messages and subs. Tabby Sue, to you, thank you for subscribing with 3 months. Razor, thank you for subscribing with 6 months. Drakewing, thanks for gifting a sub. Color by Emmy says, looking cute, Hannah. Thank you. Ashy Boo, thanks for subscribing with 4 months. Says, hi, Hannah. Can't believe it's already been 4 months of fun. Can't wait for more. Me too. It's gonna be good. Cherry Tree Boy with 20 bits says, Hannah, your hair looks so fluffy. Thank you. Marusama with 20 bits says, Hannah, I'm gonna get vaccinated on the 19th. I'm both happy and terrified. I'm afraid of needles. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan either. As long as I look away, it's fine. But, you know, just, you know, put your brain in another headspace. Mike Max 321 with 20 bits says, have you seen the Catch Me Outside girl discuss the bad things she and others went through in the ranch that Dr. Phil sent kids to? No, I haven't seen that. It's probably interesting. The Shadow Witch with 100 bits says, I'm not dead, I'm around. I've just been busy and I'm still watching. Just rare I'm live. Good things going so far. Miss you, chat. We miss you too. I hope things are going good. Wild Woods Den, thanks for subscribing. We're for 2 months with a 1 month streak. Says, hey Hannah, are you going to be DMing your own D&D campaign at some point? Because you should fit in a thinly veiled encounter of Danzy Sings as a siren. And yes, I realize it would have cost me exactly $0 to not say that, but here we are. I actually do DM a campaign. We just took a really long break. It's been like a year, but we're hoping to get back to it soon. I'll take your suggestion into account. My friends wouldn't get it. I don't think they watch the stream enough to understand that reference, but... Also, I don't know if I could do that. That would... If I were to do an actual impression of Danzy, that would veer right into, like, really racial stereotype territories, and I'm good. MW1642 with 100 bits, thank you. A Colston 20 bits says, when are you going to read Jorp's book? You mean Jordan Peterson? I have it in the other room. I've started reading it. Hoi Polloi, thanks for the 20 bits. Steve with a Q with 20 bits says, if we do Tankie Watch Bingo, will we have to share the sub amongst all of chat, or will the central committee just take it? Alright, that's pretty good. We're not doing bingo. At least not yet. I don't even know the tropes of the Tankies, so we'll have to watch for a bit before I figure out what would even go on a bingo card. Zombie Tomcat with 50 bits says, it's become a tradition that I watch you while I make dinner, so have some bits. Thanks, I hope your dinner's good. DM Trey, thanks for gifting 5 subs to the community. MMO Addicted, thanks for gifting 10 subs to the community. Have you considered making Tankie Thursday? Nah, I think I'd just rather do Chud Watch sporadically. We're gonna start with Horseshoe Fash Boy Moppin'. Yeah, we're gonna check him out. MMO Addicted with 100 bits says, finally, bring on the Tankies. Let my intimate knowledge of the inefficiencies of the USSR finally be of use. MMO Addicted, thanks for gifting another 10 subs to the community. Wowzers, thank you. You're very generous today. I appreciate it. MMO Addicted with 100 bits says, I had to gift 10 more subs for the 69 lifetime total gifted subs. Of course. Good reason, honestly. Are we going through Jason Unger tonight? I don't know. Let's see who's on my list. I don't know much about any of these people. I know Caleb Maupin is Burger Kang guy, and we've watched a video of him once where he defended, like, the concentration camps in China. But I don't know much about him otherwise. Ooh, he's got 15,000 subs. I need to get more subs on YouTube than Caleb Maupin. Share my YouTube channel with people. Bay Area 415, also someone we've covered before. Jeffrey Patron, thanks for gifting 2 subs to the community. Hakim? I'm actually not sure how that's pronounced. But we'll watch something from this person. The Finnish Bolshevik. Matt Florence. Jason Unruh. Oh god. Tovarishk Endmian. Proletarian TV. Spooky Scary Socialist. Black Red Guard. Tankie Kang, that's just the same guy again, but a specific video, and Infrared. That's what I got so far. If anyone has any other Tankies, I don't know why I'm looking at this camera when I should be looking at this camera. I have 2 cameras now. Hold on, I'll wait. Now I'm over here. The camera needs to be higher, honestly. Here, let's do this. Camera B. If you have any Tankies, see, I almost said Chuds. If you have any Tankies you want me to watch, send them in the chat, please. Gotta make that camera higher, because this angle is not flattering to me. Jeffrey Patron, thanks for gifting another sub. Distant Red with 20 bits says, maybe we'll become educated and we'll become Tankies. I'm not weird, Baja, you're weird. So what should we do? What I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys know any Tankies on that list that are good, or a different one? What should we start with? Takes one to know one? True. Caleb? Okay. Someone said Caleb, and they said it first, so I don't know. Should we do, like, most popular Caleb videos of all time? Because, like... I don't know. Like, I would imagine he's going to criticize American foreign policy, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but at the same time, he disproportionately congratulates China, who is also bad. So, I don't know. He did debate Vosh. We could watch that, I guess, but... The only difference between a Tankie and a Chud is their preferred name for their concentration camp. They want to jail the same people. It is almost my birthday. It'll be my birthday on the 12th. I don't think I'll be doing a stream on the 12th, unfortunately, but we'll do like a special pre-birthday stream on the 11th or something. And you guys could all tell me happy birthday. It'll be nice. The synthetic left. A message to Trump supporters from a communist. That might be interesting. Dude spanking dude says cleanse for later. Okay. Thank you. I don't know. I guess I just gotta pick, right? Oh no. This is when he defended the concentration camps in China.
Hey folks. Now, we all know that mistakes were made in China in the way religious people were treated.
You don't say, huh? Did you know that there were some mistakes made in the United States in regard to the treatment of non-white populations?
You know, especially during the Cultural Revolution with the Gang of Four. A lot of the way that people who practiced their religion were treated was just wrong. And it wasn't just Muslims. It was, Roman Catholics, Buddhists, other religious groups in China faced, mistreatment by the Chinese Communist Party.
And continue to have that happen to them. Thus the topic we're talking about today, which is concentration camps for Uyghur Muslims.
And the Chinese Communist Party has been very, very open about the mistakes that were made during that time, and they've tried to correct them. And, that's not to say that there aren't mistakes that still go on, right? And that the issue of how religion is treated in China is constantly in flux. We've recently seen a rapprochement between the Vatican and Beijing and, some friendly relations established there. But regardless, there are a lot of forces that are talking...
I gotta turn, my heat off. It's warm enough that I need it. I'm already heating up. Give me 1 sec. I apologize.
about what's going on with the Uyghurs in China. And a lot of what they're saying can't be confirmed, right? A lot of these reports that we're seeing say a lot of really, really intense things.
Let's look at some of the evidence, shall we? The oh god, I'm so bad with, Chinese names and proper nouns. I'm gonna give it a shot. I apologize for getting this wrong. Xinjiang internment camps, officially called vocational education training centers by the government of China, are internment camps operated by the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region government and its Chinese Communist Party Provincial Committee. Human Rights Watch claims that they have been used to indoctrinate Uyghurs and other Muslims since 2017. As a part of a people's war on terror, a policy announced in 2014. The camps have been criticized by many countries and human rights organizations for alleged human rights abuses, mistreatment, rape, and torture, with some alleging genocide. Some countries have expressed support for the camps. The camps were established under CCP General Secretary Xi Jinping's administration. Operations are led by Chen Quanguo, CCP Politburo member and committee secretary who leads the party in the region. The camps are reportedly operated outside the legal system. Many Uyghurs have reportedly been interned without trial and no charges have been levied against them, held in administrative detention. Local authorities are reportedly holding hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs in these camps, as well as members of other ethnic minority groups, for the stated purpose of countering extremism and terrorism and promoting social integration. Yeah, this is not okay. This was not okay, and this is probably a more extreme example, but I'm not going to try and, say which is which. But, reminds me a little bit of Japanese internment camps. That mixed with, I don't know. You know when, in America and Canada, they would take native children and forcibly educate them through like a sort of Western educational system to make sure that they weren't raised in sort of a traditional, school or culture for their tribe. Reminds me of that, mixed with bad shit. Not good. You cannot forcibly take a group of people who have committed no crime. They just happen to have a religious belief that you don't agree with. And frankly, I don't agree with either. I'm not a Muslim. I'm atheist. But they have the right, or should have the right, to believe what they want. You can't just take them and be like, we disagree with your religious views, so we're gonna re-educate you. You can't do it. You can't. It's not okay. As of 2019, it was estimated that Chinese authorities may have detained 1.5 million people, mostly Uyghurs, but also Kazakhs. Oh god, I don't know that word. Let me see if that'll give me a pronunciation. Ki-ir-kazizu. Sorry. And other Turkic Muslim Christians, as well as some foreign citizens such as Kazakhstanis, who are being held in these secretive internment camps which are located throughout the region. In May 2018, U.S. Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security Affairs, Randall Shriver, said at least 1 million, but likely closer to 3 million camps were imprisoned. Million citizens, rather, were imprisoned in detention centers, which he described as concentration camps. In August 2018, Gay McDougal, a U.S. representative at the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, said that the committee had received many credible reports that 1 million ethnic Uyghurs in China have been held in, quote, re-education camps. There have also been multiple reports by media outlets, politicians, and researchers which compared the camps to the Chinese Cultural Revolution. In 2019, at the United Nations, 54 nations, including China itself, rejected allegations against China and supported China's policies in Xinjiang. In other letter, 23 nations accepted the allegations against China and did not support China's policies. In September 2020, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute reported in its Xinjiang data project that construction of camps continued despite claims that their function was winding down. Let's look at, like, camp facilities and stuff. In urban areas, most of the camps are converted from existing vocational schools, CCP schools, ordinary schools, or other official buildings, while in suburban or rural areas, the majority of camps were specially built for the purposes of re-education. These camps are guarded by armed forces or special police and equipped with prison-like gates surrounding the walls, security fences, surveillance systems, watchtowers, guard rooms, and facilities for armed police. Anytime, and it annoys me when these get classified by people like Maupin as, like, they're re-education centers, they're vocational schools. Vocational schools don't have fences and that keep you from leaving. They don't force you to stay there, and you're not being, held in by the military. That's not how those work. While there is no public verifiable data for the number of camps, there have been various attempts to document suspected camps based on satellite imagery and government documents. On the 15th of May 2017, Jamestown Foundation, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank, released a list of 73 government bids related to re-education facilities. On the 1st of November 2018, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute reported on suspected camps in 28 locations. On the 29th of November 2018, Reuters and the Earthrise media reported 39 suspected camps. The Eastern Turkestan National Awakening Movement reported on an even larger number of camps. In 2018, a report from the U.S. government-funded Radio Free Asia is said to have 3 re-education camps. An RFA listener provided a copy of a confidentiality agreement requiring re-education camp detainees to not discuss the workings of the camps, and said local residents were instructed to tell members of re-education camp inspection teams visiting number 2 re-education camp that there was only one camp in the country. It's called number 2 re-education camp, but it's the only one. Interesting name. The RFA listener was also said the number 2 re-education camp had transferred thousands of detainees and removed barbed wire from the perimeter of the walled camps. The detention of Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities also allegedly left many children without their parents. The Chinese government has allegedly held these children at a variety of institutions and schools colloquially known as boarding schools, although not all are residential institutions that serve as de facto orphanages. In September 2018, the AP reported that thousands of boarding schools were being built. According to the Chinese Department of Education, children as young as 8 are enrolled in these schools. According to Adrian Zenz and BBC in 2019, children of detained parents in boarding schools had been forced to learn Mandarin Chinese and prevented from exercising their religion. In a paper published in the Journal of Political Risk, Zenz calls the effort a systematic campaign of social re-engineering and cultural genocide. Human Rights Watch claimed that the children detained at child welfare facilities and boarding schools were held without parental consent or access. In December 2019, the New York Times reported that approximately about 500,000 elementary and junior high school students were enrolled in the boarding schools. They also reported that students are only allowed to see family members once every 2 weeks and that they were forbidden from speaking the Uyghur language. Yeah, none of this is okay. This was not okay when, people in the United States government did this to indigenous people and their children, and it's not okay in China either. Not cool. Not cool. It's fucked up. It is cultural genocide, and that's not to mention the allegations of mistreatment of the prisoners, the forced labor stuff, which we'll get into, the sexual assaults. Let's do the forced labor part right now. Adrian Zenz reported that the re-education camps also function as forced labor camps in which Uyghurs and Kazakhs produced various products for export, especially those made from cotton growing in Xinjiang. The growing cotton is central to the industry of the region, as 43% of Xinjiang's exports are for apparel, footwear, or textiles. In 2018, 84% of China's cotton was produced in the Xinjiang province. Since cotton is grown and processed into textiles in Xinjiang, a November 2019 article from The Diplomat said that the risk of forced labor exists at multiple steps in the creation of a product. Yeah, I don't know if this is a bold assessment. Slavery, bad. Slavery is bad. No matter who does it. Bad. Don't do the slavery. Let me see if there's any other interesting sections. Yeah. Let's take a look back at Maupin and see him defending this shit.
But if you dig a little bit deeper, the only source is some think tank or some institute or some policy source that's linked to Saudi Arabia. We're seeing a lot of personal accounts from people. People are saying, well, I was here, I saw this, and they're all over Western media.
Okay, that sounds pretty reasonable. If someone was there and they were like, hey, I was in this concentration camp. It's a concentration camp. There was forced labor. There was sexual assault. There was this, and that. Yeah, I'm gonna tend to believe that person, especially if there are multiple people. You just said there were multiple people who've come forward. Maybe if it was one person, you go, okay, we need to investigate this, but this is one person's anecdote. We should definitely look into this. But that compounded with the fact that it's multiple people all echoing the same experience in these camps, along with the satellite images we have of these camps, along with, again, documentation that they have from government contracts to build said camps. Like, it's not one thing. If it was one person saying this thing existed, maybe I would say Caleb had a point. But it's not. There's a pretty good case based on the evidence that we have, and to deny it at this point is just gross.
Making their claim, and if you look a little deeper, these are people that are just anti-China activists that have an axe to grind.
Look, again, I feel like Caleb has a problem, and maybe it's just because he is, a Tankie and he's an authoritarian, whatever, but, it seems like he spends all his time criticizing the United States and thinks that if you criticize the United States, you can't criticize anyone else, especially someone like China, who has a fundamentally different type of government than the United States. It's almost like a fallacy where it's like, well, it's different than the United States, and the United States is bad, so it must be good. No, things can be bad in different ways. The Chinese government is not good. I'm sorry. The Chinese people, I'm sure, are wonderful. Like, the culture in China is vibrant and beautiful. The Chinese government? Bad.
And a lot of them are linked to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which really has no grounds to ever lecture anyone on human rights. So a lot of this needs to be taken with a grain of salt. And there's a lot of things that aren't being reported on. For example, in the Uyghur regions, there's been a huge amount of economic development. You know, the Chinese government has gone in there and started, raising people up out of poverty. They've been building infrastructure. They've been increasing the level of employment, making sure there's good jobs there.
Okay, do you have evidence for these claims? Now that you claimed that anecdotes are bad, and you said that you think multiple people coming out and saying that these are concentration camps, you don't believe them, but I'm guessing what you're saying about job increases and industrialization, I'm assuming these are official claims coming out of the Chinese government. Why do you agree with the line and believe the line coming out of the Chinese government, but not believe people who are claiming they've actually been in these camps and who are disagreeing with you? Not to mention, I don't care if you industrialize a region. I don't care if you provide jobs for people if you're taking a million other people and putting them in concentration camps. One doesn't undo the other. And I'm also suspicious that in this, jobs umbrella, they're including the forced labor in these camps. I don't consider slavery a job. Slavery is slavery. That's why there's a separate word for it.
And furthermore,
Is he some kind of journalist? I believe he's a correspondent for RT, which is Russian state media, but he also does his own independent thing here on YouTube.
Definitely not hearing in the media reports is how the Chinese government has been promoting Islam. Promoting Islam, right? In the Uyghur regions, the Chinese government has been sponsoring the construction of seminaries and mosques.
Yeah, that's a thing too. The Chinese government did something similar with Christianity where they would certainly discourage people from being Christian, but on top of that, they would also build their own versions of Christian churches. And again, I'm not religious. I have no stake in this. I just think people should have the right to practice their religious beliefs how they see fit, as long as they're not hurting other people. Either way, they would build state-sponsored churches, and in this case, mosques, or schools of learning for sorry, I'm forgetting. Are they called imams? The sort of pastor in Islam. I apologize. I don't know a ton about Islam. But either way, they'll build state-sponsored institutions for these people and state-sponsored churches or mosques. That way they can control the message to make sure that the religious message is in line with the civic governmental messages of the day. It's a way for the government to sort of get in and take control of the apparatus of the religion to further ingratiate people into the state's preferred line of thinking for citizens. This has happened to Christianity in China as well to some extent.
They've been, giving platforms to imams. They've been doing a lot to promote Islam in the Uyghur provinces, but promote Islam that is not, anti-communist. Islam that doesn't call for the violent overthrow of the Chinese government, but Islam that is, sensible, moderate Islam that is not the kind of thing that is being promoted by these extremists. And there is a real fear of extremists. Read about these knife attacks that have happened in China, where people get on trains and pull out knives.
Okay, there have been terrorist attacks on American soil too. That doesn't mean you get to round up all the Muslims and put them in re-education camps, or you get rid of all their mosques and then get state-sponsored mosques that promote the government's idea of a good version of that religion. That's not okay. You can't do that. I mean, the Chinese government can do that in the sense that they have the authority and power, but you morally should not do that. That is repugnant.
And just start killing people in big numbers. They have a real fear. It seems pretty clear to me that there are some forces in the world today that are very, very determined to stop what China is doing around the world.
Probably.
The fact that China is doing the Belt and Road Initiative, building infrastructure in developing countries.
Oh boy, let's get into this. I think I've actually talked about this one before, but China isn't helping put money and investment into places like Africa out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing sort of soft imperialism, and the U.S. is not, immune from this. The U.S. has been doing this for decades. But the idea of sort of nation building and going into other countries and investing in them, either privately or through governmental initiatives to, let's just say, better the relationship between countries, it's not out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it so they can then get good trade deals, and they can say, well, we've industrialized part of your nation, we built roads and stuff, now we want you to provide cheap labor for our goods, because as China has continued to develop, they're starting to build a bit of more of a middle class. Basically, they're becoming more consumer-oriented, not as much as the United States currently is, but, they're on that trajectory. And they're looking forward and saying, okay, China has been the place where a bunch of cheap goods based on low-wage labor have been exported from for the rest of the world for decades. Now looking forward, what are we going to do as our consumer base increases? Oh, we better go start industrializing places in Africa and building factories and infrastructure so they can build factories so they can provide cheap-made goods for us because the labor there is cheap. It's almost like musical chairs of who's going to be the wage slaves. You know what I mean? It's a pain in the ass.
Raising people up out of poverty. This is a threat to the monopolies.
For-profit prisons are our concentration camps. Oh, the American prison system is entirely fucked up. I agree.
The big bankers that control the world, they keep the world poor so that they can stay rich. China is challenging that global order. They are raising people up out of poverty.
They're probably trying to challenge American homogeneity, American, dominance over the world stage, but they're not doing so out of some idea of, oh, we're so magnanimous, we're gonna help everyone on Earth and stop American imperialism, and then there'll be no more imperialism. No, they want to be the ones who are in charge of everything. I'm not saying, one is either is good, but, again, the implication that America is this just evil, evil country, which in some ways it is in terms of foreign policy, but to then turn to China and go, but China's great, is so ridiculous.
Part of China's Belt and Road Initiative is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor that is opening up. This is huge. China and Pakistan are cooperating like never before. All kinds of construction projects, all kinds of efforts to really just light up that whole region. It's big. And it's pretty clear that Saudi Arabia and Wall Street and London want to stop the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And so they're doing everything they can to try and incite Muslims around the world to hate China. That's basically what they're doing. All kinds of efforts.
I don't think it takes a ton of incitement when you're putting people in concentration camps. Again, I'm not even Muslim, but I'm mad about that. You can't be putting people in concentration camps or re-education centers. It's not okay.
Are being made to get Muslims around the world to hate China. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't mistakes that are being made, and we're not on the ground. We don't know what's happening. But a lot of the things we're seeing in American media, they're very, very sensational.
I wonder if he actually believes this and he thinks these are actually just haha, yay, I'm learning, re-education camp, hooray, I'm learning a new vocation. Does he really believe this flowery vision of these camps, or does he just strategically say this because he thinks it furthers his goals, whatever they happen to be? I'm curious.
Meanwhile, China is actually doing a lot to improve the lives of people in the historically Islamic regions, giving them opportunities, giving them job training, building seminaries and mosques, providing economic opportunity. And that's the side of the story that definitely isn't being told. And a lot of the accounts we're hearing are very sensational and can't completely be verified. So I urge people to just calm down, right? I urge people to just calm down. Let's try.
I know that there are rumors that Jews are being rounded up in Germany. I know it's the 1930s and there's ghettos going on, but we don't even have verification. So let's just, everyone calm down. Calm down. I know that there's allegations of genocide, but we should all just calm down.
try to get to the facts. Let's try to find out what's
It's a clip from the quartering.
That shit.
Is this TOS breaking? Is this fine? Let me know before I play it.
actually happening. And let's remember that the way to stop terrorism is with jobs and schools and housing. Right? People turn to terrorism just like they turn to drugs and the drug narcotics trade. They turn to that when they don't have other options. And what China is doing in the world today by building infrastructure, building trains.
Okay, putting 1 million people in concentration camps is not going to stop terrorism. All you're going to do is radicalize more people. Bad. Bad, Caleb Maupin.
It's funny. If you can't laugh at stereotypes about yourself, like, I really don't know. Like, I mean, black folks really do be liking watermelon and chicken. I mean, why is that a harmful stereotype? There's a reason that Popeye's chicken isn't in the suburbs. So, but so what? Who cares? I love chicken. Like,
I feel like that pause was Jeremy realizing, oh, shouldn't have said that. Should not have said that.
it doesn't even matter.
Well, that's getting saved for Chud Watch. Thank y'all.
And airports and hospitals and schools. This is really important. This is the way to get out of terrorism. The fact that China has a program in Afghanistan where they're enabling children to get operations and surgeries they wouldn't be able to get by just going over the Chinese border. The fact that China is trying to give port access to Afghanistan so that Afghanistan can have manufacturing jobs, this landlocked...
Do you understand the idea of political alliances, Caleb? Does he really believe China is just like, we're just charitable, so let's do this for absolutely no other reason than the goodness of our hearts? It's not how it works.
...blocked country in Central Asia. This is all unprecedented. China is basically paving the way for a world where we don't have terrorism and drugs and the horrors that we're seeing.
Have you tried drugs? They're pretty good.
The China plan with Iran about trade and transport for Afghanistan to bring opportunities to Afghanistan to stop the drug trade, that's huge, right? The cooperation between China and Russia in terms of economic development, that's
Oh yeah, because I love Russia.
huge as well. And that China's role in the world is very, very good. And it seems to me that there are some forces that would really like to stop what China's doing.
Yeah, because China commits human rights violations constantly. It's bad.
And part of doing
We'd rather not have China export authoritarianism to the rest of the world, thanks. Because it's awful, because it's bad. It's bad. Oh, shoot.
really paving the way for a world where we don't have terrorism and drugs and the horrors that we're seeing. The China plan with Iran about trade and transport for Afghanistan to bring opportunities to Afghanistan to stop the drug trade, that's huge, right? The cooperation between China and Russia in terms of economic development, that's huge as well. And that China's role in the world is very, very good. And it seems to me that there are some forces that would really like to stop what China's doing. And part of doing that is inciting Muslims around the world to have hatred and resentment for the People's Republic of China. So
China has incited that already by putting people in concentration camps.
I urge people
I'm a broken record here.
to just kind of cool down, look for the actual facts, and take everything that the mainstream American media, and especially any media tied with Saudi Arabia, take anything they say with a grain of salt. Because, hysteria, extreme emotions never really solves the problem. Are mistakes possibly being made? Perhaps, but we don't know all the facts, and I urge people to slow down. And let's remember that at this point, the way to stop terrorism is with jobs and schools and housing. and that China's One Belt, One Road initiative is the best hope that humanity has at this point. So let's slow down and get the facts.
So that's Caleb, again, going to bat for China. Not good. We'll continue to visit Caleb every once in a while here on Tankie Watch, I guess. I don't know. It's just... It's frustrating. It's so frustrating watching someone make the same mistakes that have been made in the past, right? Don't do it. Don't go full authoritarian. It's never good. Bits messages, and then we'll move on. Towing24 says most of the economic development is built on the rubble of mosques, and then there was a link to The Guardian, thousands of Xinjiang mosques destroyed and damaged. Yeah, doesn't surprise me. MMO Addicted says, I've written a thesis on the Belt and Roads. There's a lot of medium and harder imperialism in it too. A lot of exclusivity contracts for Chinese government-owned corporations. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's China isn't doing it because they're like, we're so nice. We're going to go into this country and industrialize it and develop it. They're not doing it. They're doing it as a quid pro quo, as basically all international relations are. I'm not saying that's right either, that international relations are like that, but that is how they are. Marcus Drake says, they're trying to put the most resource-rich continent with 1 billion people into extreme debt. Everyone knows debt doesn't change your behavior toward the debt holder, though. Towing24 with 20 bits says, bankers, with the 3 echoes, because Caleb apparently referenced that. Towing24 says, Caleb, you just can't say that word for Pakistan. Now you're saying all Muslims are bad? Towing24 says, also, the only reason Pakistan is in on this is because they want to carve up India with China in two-front war. Sushi Mom with 100 bits says, Burger King deleted their sexist tweet, and now this has to be the best joke on Twitter. And it was a link to, I think, KF Logan? Let me see if I can find that link. Oh no, that's KFC Gaming. That's KFC. Oh no. Querulous Artisan, thanks for resubscribing with 6 months. Oh hey, I hit the last month of the second trimester of my sub baby. Get ready. It's gonna be a messy one. Sylvnull, thank you for resubscribing with 3 months. Did China build this guy a house or something? He works for Russia. He works for Russian state TV, so. Enlid with 20 bits, so I wonder, since China is a big member, the UN can't send in investigators? I'd imagine China's like, no. China says no to that, would be my guess. China's on the Security Council now, aren't they? They weren't an original member, but I'm pretty sure they are. Yep, China, France, Russia, United Kingdom, US, and then there's non-permanent members, Estonia, India, Ireland, Kenya, Mexico, Niger, Norway, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, Tunisia, and Vietnam. So yes, China is on the UN Security Council. Drawhawk Music Geekery, thanks for the 20-bit, says, his repeating of facts reminds me of a certain other YouTuber. Bay Area 415. This is another person that I've looked at before. Oh, God. This video is entitled, My Fellow Americans, Voting is Not Helping Us, It's Hurting Us. The Comrade Report. So let's take a look.
My fellow Americans.
Oh, the pitch shift. Always with the pitch shift.
My fellow Americans.
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 Is your guard down? Are you feeling calm enough for the amount of lies and manipulation that I will sling at you? How many times were we told this phrase before the greatest crimes against humanity were ever committed?
Hold on, I gotta turn the screen off for a sec.
My fellow Americans will put you at ease, while those most vulnerable all over the world brace for the oppression they will face through our guns and our bombs. Let me rephrase the start of this speech, not with the line of manipulators, but with one single word. A word that embraces all people of every race, nationality, sex, gender, religion, color, physicality, and background, through unifying the oppressed by throwing off their chains. Comrades. So are we finally ready to admit it?
Outside of just the problems that these people have, going to bat for authoritarianism in China and stuff like that, another issue I tend to find with Tankies that's completely outside of the substance of their arguments and has everything to do with the presentation is they have absolutely zero chill. And what I mean by that is they have no pragmatism when it comes to their rhetoric. Like, straight up adopting USSR type language in order to get people on your side is a terrible strategy. It's poison to your cause. So stop.
Have we all realized that campaigns, ballot boxes, speeches, and donations are not freedom and democracy?
Actually, ballot boxes are literally democracy. I don't agree with, like, corporate donations, but yeah, voting is democracy. That's how democracy works.
But control and dominance over us, the people? How many times are we going to say we do not have a democracy, but an oligarchy? How many times are we going to die for liberals to realize that Biden or anyone else that they put up will not reverse any of the fascistic policies and fascistic progress that put us here in the first place?
You're not going to convince liberals of that by doing this shit. I'm just going to put that out there. I agree. I'm not a fan of, like, neo-libs. I'm not a fan of Biden. I don't think he's going to affect nearly enough change. But putting on a ski mask and adopting Soviet Union style rhetoric, it's not going to help your cause. You're not going to pull people from brunch by calling them comrades and being like, throw off the shackles of your oppression. Because as it turns out, the bread and circuses are pretty good for a lot of people. Not necessarily all people. A lot of people are struggling, which makes it easier to pull some people further left, if that's your goal. But you're not pulling people at brunch out by going, oh, Biden is a neo-lib, and I just wish we lived in China or North Korea. They're gonna look at you like a crazy person because you're a crazy person.
It's not those who don't vote that are to blame anymore. It's those that vote.
He's wearing, like, gardening gloves, too. I wonder why the gloves. If you're gonna wear gloves for, like, a thing like this, at least get, like, fancy gloves. They don't have to be silver, but get something other than, like, gloves you wear when you're, like, gardening. I don't know.
That participate in this corrupt system. Those that vote for Trump or Biden and still have not seen the change we desperately need in this country, but think a ballot will make a difference, yet still have the smug ignorance to say that we are privileged because we are calling it as we see it.
Senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now. Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question because the question is the question. Will you shut up, man?
You are enacting the injustices we are suffering from by participating in a broken system that only manipulates for the benefit.
Do you think that if you vote that you're incapable of also changing the system? You're not going to change the system from outside. People also do stuff like this, stuff like even that you do, where you're talking to people and trying to get messaging out to people to make basically the hearts and minds thing, but unironically and not in a haha way. But, like, actually changing people's opinion. There are people who are political lobbyists, and I'm not talking, like, for big corporations or anything, but people who have, like, special interests or whatever. Good ones who are actually trying to affect, I don't know, election reform to get better forms of voting. People who are trying to get rid of the Electoral College. People who are trying to get rid of money in politics. Like, people act within and without the system and vote. Those are both good things to do. You're not going to only change the system by deciding, I'm not participating, and especially not if your plan, because you're a tankie, I don't know what this guy's deal is, but if his plan is to, like, we're going to overthrow the government, then you're an idiot, then you're an idiot, then you're an idiot.
Capitalists. We have only one choice, not two. And it's not the choice we need. We need universal health care during one of the worst pandemics in our history. We won't get it. We need debt relief during the worst economic downturns for a majority of the people in the United States. We won't get it. We need justice and the power to determine our own destiny that is not tethered to a dollar bill or a rich man's bidding. We will not get it. What will we get? We will get either accelerated fascism or delayed fascism. Don't you get it, voters? We lost Heather.
Oh, don't fucking do... Oh, come on, dude. Let's not use Heather fucking higher for your gross tanky speech, please.
Anthony. We lost Joseph. We lost Brianna. We lost George. We lost George. We lost George.
I'm not laughing at the actual event. The George Floyd thing is a fucking tragedy and emblematic of tons of things wrong with the policing in this country. But the manipulative way in which he is using this grosses me out. Genuinely.
George Floyd. We rioted for weeks, and you still think voting works? You still have faith in that racist democracy that was drummed up by slave-owning white elites who won't even allow a popular vote to win. We can no longer be the sacrificial lambs for the patience of liberals who continue to peddle false candidates, because our front lines are stacked with the most vulnerable, and they are getting killed every single day. It's time we put faith outside of the voting booth. It's time to educate, it's time to agitate, and it's time to organize. I'm not just talking to the leftists here. Everyone who has been screwed by this unjust capitalist system that has drained our culture to an individualist wasteland. Nothing is safe anymore.
If I agree to overthrow the government with you, can we get you a better podium? Because that shit is weak. It's a thought.
To an individualist wasteland. Nothing is safe anymore. Our planet is burning faster and harder more than ever because of a crooked economic system that places profits over every single living being on Earth. Everyone...
I don't understand how he thinks this is gonna go if there was, let's say hypothetically, there was some sort of tanky type takeover of the government. How does he think this is going to go that would solve climate change? I'm very curious.
You must understand that capitalists would rather see this world burn, either by global warming through their pollutants or nuclear holocaust through drumming needless world wars with other nations that can actually help us, then give up their own wealth. Our sons and daughters are their cannon fodder to fuel their war machines to kill other innocent children for their own imperialism. Revolution is not coming, comrades, because it's already here.
God damn it. How does he think this is going to work? Exactly. Because he doesn't appear to want to do the voting thing, but he also doesn't seem to really want to do the pragmatic changing people's minds thing. So in effect, he wants to presumably violently take over the government and then enforce communistic control over a populace, I would say most of which who do not want it. Most of which who don't want it. Who is he going to get to enforce this? Because certainly the military isn't going to do it, because the military is going to tend to lean right. Cops aren't going to do it, because cops, again, are going to tend to lean right. Who does he think is going to enforce this, like, communistic, tanky New World Order? Unless he actively goes out and tries to change people's opinions on public policy, on the idea that, oh, hey, you know how America's entire cultural identity and the things that we're taught basically from youth are all about individualism and the owning of personal property and how good that is? What if I just tell you no? That's not how that shit works. If you want to change how a country's culture functions and you want to change America from being individualistic to at least somewhat more collectivist, although this guy would go very collectivist, I would imagine, based on his rhetoric, and the fact that he really likes North Korea and stuff. Like, we've literally watched him defend North Korea before, and not just a little bit, like, oh, North Korea is great. That kind of stuff is stuff he says. You're not going to do it by forcing people at gunpoint. You need to, over time, because these things take time, change people's opinions on things, change people's, like, identity in relation to the culture and their relationship to other people. You can't just enforce it. That would create innumerable atrocities. So don't do that. Don't do that.
It's been here ever since the first mother.
Yeah, can we get this guy and John Doyle? I agree, chat. Can we get this guy and John Doyle in an MMA fight? I really want to see it. This guy can even wear the mask if he wants.
That had to decide whether to feed her kids or pay the rent. Ever since the first father had to decide whether to work another 5 hours of work or get some sleep. Ever since the first child had to decide whether to go to school or go to work. Ever since the first slave walked on this country's shores. Ever since that first native was forced from their own land or killed for defending what's rightfully theirs. Ever since the first transgender person was unlawfully killed for just being who they truly are.
Can you not use my identity and the identities of other trans people to try and promote your tanky overthrow of the government, please? I don't appreciate that. Trans issues are serious issues, and they're not going to be solved by forcing people to like trans people at gunpoint, you idiot.
This isn't new for us. It's something that we've always lived with and always been fighting against. Revolution is here, and we all knew the progress that was made throughout our history can easily be reversed by the white capitalist power structure. And what do you know?
Lenin would disagree. Well, he's dead, isn't he?
Immediately after we got our first black president, they replaced him with a white bigot capitalist who has his racist cronies on standby, ready to fire.
Supremacists and right supremacists and right Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what, somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
Ready to fire. The White House has always been the White House. But with all this said, comrades, we have momentum too. Let the fascists and reactionaries and the Trumpers tremble with fear, anger, and spite at the sight of Black Lives Matter and socialism.
It frustrates me to no end that this guy is, like, co-opting political movements and genuine, like, political struggles that individuals in minority groups, whether we're talking about racial minorities with stuff like Black Lives Matter or stuff like trans people, whatever it happens to be, and he's co-opting them in order to push his radical agenda. And I do say that, his fucking radical agenda. Like, I absolutely want universal health care. I want an end to the military-industrial complex. I want people to start respecting trans people and start respecting people who are different than them, whether it's about race or religion or whatever. But you cannot force people to do that at gunpoint. You can't do it, whether it's a metaphorical gun or a literal gun. You have to actively make changes to how people think and feel about things. You do that with stories and explanations and reaching out to them and talking to them, to teaching children from when they're young, like, these things are good. You do not do so by being like, we're gonna fuck you up if you don't agree with us, because they're never really agreeing with you then, and all you've done is teach them that people who like the things that you like are somehow evil. It embeds the idea that people who are pro, I don't know, universal health care or pro workplace democracy or whatever it happens to be, it makes them think that they're violent radicals. You're actively hurting the causes that you're claiming that you're for. It's ridiculous.
They are trying to violently avoid the truth that their history of blood, slavery, and oppression is something that they can simply sweep under the rug. No, that's not justice. That's running away from the responsibilities of their ancestors that placed them in that seat of power, position, and privilege. It's a mentality in denial, manipulated by those on top, pulling the strings to protect their own wealth. But here is a guaranteed fact that doesn't care about your feelings. We will get justice. Our movement demands it. And what's scariest of all for these folks, we are growing. But this has to be said for all leftists in order for our movement to become more effective. We cannot vote our way to a better future.
That's literally your only option. That and advocating for reforms in the voting system, reforms in campaign election systems. You do not have a third option. Do not do stupid shit and destroy your own cause by making irrational decisions based on the fact that you fetishize the revolutions because of, like, the USSR or the French Revolution or whatever. I know the whole guillotine thing is a meme, but no, not great. I don't know if you guys know what happens after violent revolutions. Bad stuff. Ask Robespierre about how that went, and see how much you want to do a violent revolution after that.
Here. Stop wishing for a people's party in this already corrupted bourgeois system. Bernie Sanders, AOC, Omar, and others are not going to be the saving grace that will reform the Democrats.
Oh, and again, here's a problem that he's having. Instead of accepting that even though we have imperfect figures in government who, like AOC and Bernie, who I agree with a lot, and I like them, but they're imperfect individuals, like all of us are. Instead of accepting that and using their existence in government as an opportunity to push people further to the left, or accept ideas like universal health care, universal college, stuff like that, which are great steps in the direction of equity for people, or at least equality of opportunity, whatever you want to call it. Instead of that, he just says, well, they're not exactly what I want, so fuck them. It's the worst strategy ever. This guy doesn't want... I don't feel like this guy actually wants to achieve his goals. He wants to LARP about this. Or he's genuinely so dumb he doesn't understand that this strategy is awful and is actively doing the opposite of his intention.
Or create a third party. We need to let go of this false hope in a tainted democracy for something better. And that's going to be through our organizing, either through our organizations or leftist parties. We must let go of this corrupt system and demand
he could
a
also
complete
be a plant.
overhaul.
I don't think he's a plant. I think he's just an idiot.
For a fairer, more just government and economy that works for the people while saving the world. Because this sign should not be a progressive political slogan, but a basic damn human value that should be a foundation for our government and economy. We must care for our comrades through our food drives, assistance programs, and community service. And we must progress by building our parties and organizations to empower the people for more strikes and more rallies and more protests. We have the spirit of comrades that have fallen before us and continue to move forward. From Malcolm X to Fred Hampton, from Oscar Lopez Riviera to Sylvia Riviera, for Angela Davis to the Gildred newspaper staff. Our legislature is our communities. Our court is the justice we demand. And our president is our comrades. Let us now move
Sounded a little sovereign citizen-y.
towards this better future now, because, comrades, it may be the only one we have left.
I don't know why he likes that voice effect and that filter so much. I think he thinks it makes him seem dramatic, but it's just laughable. Again, for the record, we've watched this video before. This same guy literally watches North Korean propaganda and believes it and is like, look at how great North Korea is.
That is Kim Il-sung hugging with open arms Deng Xiaoping. It really does warm the heart when you see how far these two countries have gone together.
Is saying comrade cringe. If you're saying it ironically, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I would never say comrade unironically because it's it's associated with people like him and also the USSR, which is not good.
What is going on, comrades? This is Bay Area 415, and before we get into some DPRK videos, I just have a few updates. First off, I really have to show these statistics on how fast we are actually growing here and how amazing the support has.
God damn, he's already up to 21,000 subscribers. Share my YouTube channel, people, damn it. Why do I have fewer subscribers than this garbage person?
Been over the past few weeks, and I have nothing but thanks for you all, comrades. You guys have made this such a great experience for me starting this channel and everything, and these videos really do take a lot of work and research from me and the team, but you all make it all worth it, and I really do appreciate every single kind comment and
okay, can we get to you buying North Korean propaganda, please?
Peace treaty signed between these two countries people up in the north, especially when we look at these stats over here. And don't even get me started on the genocidal massacres the South Korean government did during these times as well. Whether you support
gotta get to the actual
and people
part.
revolutionary that passionately fought for his people, finding the Workers' Party of Korea that initiated so many land and economic reforms that helped the people in so many ways. Let's continue.
그 나라 인권은 세계에서 최고요. 아니 미국 같은 나라 보라고. 아까도 우리 이야기했잖아. 미국 집 앞 경찰 옆에서 사람 무사서 경찰 옆을 다가가서 옆구리다 먼저 손을 총 뽑아낼 판인데. 아니 자기 나라 인민이 미국 같은 거 자기 나라 사람이 설악에서 서지나 딱 총 발사해. 호수문에 손에 딱 총 있는 거에서 총 발사해서 죽여. 아니 어린 학생이.
Can you guys read the subtitles on this, or is it too small?
자기는 말을 듣지 않았다고 그것도 여학생인데 경찰이 어제 돼지 같은 경찰들이 1000명이 달려서 두드려 패고 손을 뒤로 묶어가지고 그게 뭐 말라빠진 일거리. 그리고 다른 나라 사람들은
Is this
붙잡아다가
guy
문자라고
serious? Oh, wow. Please be still, my red beating communist.
You understand that him criticizing America doesn't defend anything about North Korea, right? You can both say American policing is disgusting, and America has the highest per capita prison population in the world, and also recognize that North Korea is not a fun place to live, and if you criticize the government, you get killed or sent to a concentration camp.
It's hard. Wow. Oh, calling American cops pigs. Oh, something for you anarchists here. Jeez.
The haircut thing is untrue. That's a myth.
Love everything about what this guy says, man. What human rights does American attempt to uphold when we have cops that beat up everybody to a bloody pulp?
How about this? You can go online, or honestly on TV or wherever, and say, fuck the police. Fuck the police. Fuck the police. I'm not going to get arrested for that. That's pretty good.
For reaching into their pockets or just looking suspicious. Also, the gigantic bigoted elements that are within our racist police forces in each municipality. Ooh, this guy is on point.
The guy made the most milquetoast observation about American police ever, and this guy's acting like he just got the best BJ ever. Oof! Oh, he called the American cops pigs! I've never heard that one before. Yeah. And then this is, again, another propaganda piece showing a North Korean house that I guarantee is not standard for most North Koreans.
上方挂有朝鲜前领导人金日成、金正日的画像，厅内的装修颇为讲究，家具家电齐全，有沙发、电视机、音响、组合柜，角落里还放着一架钢琴，用白色的绣花罩布遮盖着。
You do that, Baha. I think I'd appreciate that.
平壤近期天气炎热，主人家打开了空调，室内非常凉爽。
Now, unfortunately, I do not have any timestamps for these translations, but one of the most interesting statements made is as follows. Recently, Pyongyang's weather is very hot. The owner opened up the air conditioner. It's very cool in the room. The wife was very proud introducing the apartment to the reporter. In this house, there lives 4 people, his wife, his mother, and their recently married daughter. The house is 240 square meters, 5 rooms and a living room, including 3 beds, 1 book room, and 1 cloakroom. This is a huge apartment, and I know what everybody is thinking. This is just a privileged group of people that just have power. They're part of the elites and whatnot, so they have such special...
I don't even know if they're elites, but this is definitely a show apartment that they're using to be like, look at how good North Korea is. Because you know what's weird, too? Like, I don't feel the need to be like, and by the way, we have an air conditioner! Look! Like, that's a pretty standard thing to have in houses in America. Like, I don't know, the fact that it's being pointed out specifically kind of is sus to me, but cool, whatever.
Treatment. Others outside the capital and the countryside have it worse, right? Well...
平壤近郊为市民供给蔬菜的长全蔬菜专业合作。
Plus, since I know I've seen multiple documentaries on North Korea. I don't know how many. I've gone on binges before because I find it very interesting. And they do sort of the same tour every time if you were to go to North Korea as a tourist, which I would not recommend. People have been arrested for shit before. Don't go to North Korea. Also, it gives them money, which isn't great. But anyway, they basically take them through staged fake areas to show, like, look at how good North Korea is. This is definitely real. Like, the example I would give is they went through a university and a whole computer lab, but the computers, none of them were connected to the internet. So... And also there were just, like, students sitting at the computers but not doing anything. Like, they were clearly there to be seen as students on the computer, but they're not doing anything. So I would not put it past North Korea to just have that apartment set up to be like, well, when the media comes, we'll show them this apartment. Look how nice our apartment is. It has an air conditioner and a 30-inch flat screen TV from 2004.
座农场里排列着成片整齐的小楼，陪同的朝方人士表示，这些都是当地农民的住宅。记者来到其中的一个小区，这里坐落着一栋栋蓝色屋顶的瓦房，房顶上安放着太阳能热水器，房前屋后种植有蔬菜，地上摆着收获的玉米。
Here's a translation. At Pyongyang's suburbs, the Changquan Vegetable Professional Cooperation Farm that provides vegetables for the citizens line up a bunch of tiny, small buildings. Our DPRK companion said these are all the houses of the local farmers. The reporter came to one of the compounds. Here are a set of houses with blue ceilings. On top of the roof, there sits a solar energy water heater. In front of the rear of the houses, there are plantations of vegetables. On the floor, there are grain corns. After the labor at the end of the day, when you come home, you can get a hot water bath. He says he does not envy the city people at all.
Wow, a hot water bath? How impressive. How could a pleb American like me ever imagine hot running water, am I right? How do you say that out loud and not realize, oh, that's indicative of bad things? It's kind of like when like CNN or someone will run a story and it's like, heartwarming story about how little girl sold lemonade so she could get a new kidney. And it's like, that's not heartwarming at all. Like, she should get that anyway without having to do labor for it. But this is like that, but sort of on the opposite end. Oh, we even have hot running water. I hadn't assumed you didn't have it. What does that mean?
So we see clearly that these privileges don't just apply to party elites, but all stratuses of people in the DPRK.
Ooh, the privilege
it's important
of
to
hot
note also
water.
that this newscast states that all the furniture, household electricity appliances, the solar energy water heater are all provided by the country, all free of charge. And free furnished housing isn't the only thing they have. They pay no taxes, free healthcare, education, and other perks as well. I would also like to add my personal story when I was abroad in Asia.
I don't think I would trust getting healthcare in North Korea. No offense.
I actually went to a North Korean restaurant called Pyongyang, which was actually ran by the DPRK government.
Yeah, they're run as propaganda tools.
And I must say, contrary to a lot of Western critics, their service was incredible and on point, and their food was absolutely delicious.
This is so interesting. There are in some other countries these restaurants that he's talking about that are run by the North Korean government. They serve traditional North Korean cuisine. They have North Korean servers. There's entertainment, like the women who are pictured here who are playing guitar and singing. Surprise, the employees are treated awfully, live on site at the restaurant, above it usually, at least in the one that I've read about, and aren't allowed to go anywhere without an escort. Stop giving money to North Korea. This is a propaganda tool, you idiot.
I had a ton of slices of beef as well, which reminded me...
DPRK 0 cases, US 700,000 deaths. That'll happen when you're an isolationist authoritarian nation, huh? Guys, you don't have to ban the Tankies immediately unless they're insulting. I want to play with the Tankies. Fuck these people.
Like a Korean barbecue, for example, with whole cloves of garlic, kimchi, and other things. I would have loved to have some DPRK soju as well, but it was kind of early in the day, but I 100% regret it. By the way,
the timeout's been removed, Stalin. Continue with your dumbassery.
If anybody's interested that I do a food review on these restaurants, let me know, and I will add it to our itinerary when we are in China or in Vietnam. They have restaurants in both locations. All right, moving on. Our last video is titled, She and His Wife Attend Large Group Calisthenics and Art Performances in the DPRK.
Again, how does he literally look at, like, just a propaganda piece and go... He just looks at a propaganda piece and he goes, yeah! Like, yeah, the USSR had a lot of good propaganda too, as does the United States. It doesn't mean they're necessarily great. Let's see. Stalin says, "Your S-hole, USA has failed. China is kicking ass." Yep, lots of fun concentration camps. Kicking ass.
By the way, there's a absolutely...
Can we keep the chud? He's cute. Sure, we can.
hilarious video on North Korea.
Thank you, MMO Addicted, for gifting a sub to Stalin 2024. Great Marshal Kim Jong-un cares about the people, unlike Biden. Yes, I'm sure Kim Jong-un cares very much about the people that he clearly doesn't give a shit about. Good call.
Koreans reacting to live K-pop performances, and they just look astounded or not even interested at all.
Deserve. Come on, Stalin. You know authoritarianism doesn't typically work. We fought a world war over this.
I mean, as hilarious as this is, you really have to wonder why they have a stoic reaction. And
Probably because, for one, they're not used to this kind of music. I wouldn't expect them to like it. I don't even like K-pop. And secondly, they're probably fucking afraid they're gonna be killed.
I wholeheartedly...
And Stalin won? Last time I checked, no, the Soviet Union collapsed, so... No, oh, you're talking about World War II. Yeah, Russia took down Berlin, and that's great. But then they also were authoritarian, and they ended up losing in the long term, because Stalin was a shit for brains.
Think that it's more in line with the fact that these performances, like K-pop, is a reflection of the degradation entertainment has in a capitalist society, and how needlessly misogynistic...
No, Kobatroid. Stalin died of, like, a stroke or heart attack or something, and because he was so authoritarian, even though they heard him collapse in his room, they were so afraid to go check on him because he said he didn't want to be disturbed that he laid there in his own piss until the morning. Because, as it turns out, authoritarianism is a bad way to run your country. Stalin saved the world. Sure he did. Remember, wait a minute. Who did Stalin start the war allied with? Let me think this out for a second. Hold on. Because Stalin didn't start as one of the allies. Who did Stalin ally with initially? Until he was betrayed? MN Broodwitch, thanks for continuing the gift sub.
Extravagant and exploitative these kinds of performances are. There is a great video that actually speaks about the K-pop industry and how extremely exploitative it is for the singers to have their lives sold through incredibly life-controlling contracts, from not being able to text people to not even having a boyfriend or anything like that in these contracts. It's a very oppressive system that they have there for K-pop, and one of the reasons why I don't really support the music genre. To compare, there's a bunch of speeches that speak about the status of women.
He did. That's true. On the bright side, Stalin was good friends with the guy who killed Hitler, so that's a bonus.
In South Korea from the North, and how exploitative the capitalist system is towards them, as the DPRK proudly upholds women's rights and celebrates their statuses constantly.
In Korea, respecting the personality of women has become a social ethos and virtue, and all their rights are realized by many laws, including the Socialist Constitution, the Law on Women's Rights, and the Socialist Labor Law, and by the state and social policies for women. In Korea, the women's equal right and political right are thoroughly ensured by law thanks to the law on sex equality, promulgated by the great leader Kim Il-sung more than 70 years ago.
With that said, let's jump back into the Chinese alliance with the DPRK. Both of these countries have a rich and deep history, as China has been a critical component in their stability, and China contributed so many of their supplies and soldiers to fight alongside them during the Korean War, and is currently their largest...
Hey, Stalin guy, you know that if you hit the caps lock button, it'll undo all the yelling that you're doing. I don't know if you know that. It's a button that says caps lock. You just hit that button. It'll probably help you out.
largest export and import partner, despite the number of international sanctions on North Korea. For all you that support the DPRK and not China, let me show you this clip, and we can try to end it here. That is Kim Il-sung hugging with open arms Deng Xiaoping. It really does.
Look at these authoritarian dictators hugging. They sure do love each other. Authority equals success. It definitely worked out for Hitler and Stalin, which is why the USSR is still going strong to this day, as is Nazi Germany. You're nailing it. We're probably done with Bay Area for now. We'll come back to him another time, but let's see what other tankies have on the docket, shall we? Fake leftism equals failure. Do you believe that in order for it to be leftism, you have to, like, want to take up arms against the government? Like, define real leftism, if you would, please. Stalin 2024. I have bit messages to get to. Let me try and do those real quick. Toeen says Blinkson, Holdemore, and Tiananmen. Toeen24 says, given how he agrees with Doyle on voting being cringe, does he also agree fapping is evil? Actual socialism? Great. Define that for me, please. Von Tux with 100 bits says, tankies are just reactionaries with a red coat of paint. Just like conservatives, they're immune to context as a socialist. I hate them. They're counterproductive. If you could do a response, by the way, Stalin, in non-all caps that's more than 2 words, that would be excellent. Towing24 says, none of this is going to happen if you just stand around bitching and not bother to actually help. Also, this dude does not give a single fuck about black people. Freedom for whom? Great. Mr. Sir Knight Kingyo says, just got here, what's happening? Are they the equivalent to the alt-right or what? They're extreme authoritarian leftists, basically. You gonna answer my question, Stalin guy, or no? That'd be great. Enlid says, maybe he's actually a sorcerer and is going to make them with magic like Uruk-hai. Maybe. I don't think they were talking about you, Stalin. I think they were talking about the guy we watched earlier about the Black Lives Matter thing. Towing24 says he wants to start a war so people of color are the first people on the front lines to die, so it is his perfect white utopia. Perhaps. Towing24 says him and John won't fight, they'd make out and build a fash homeland. Towing24 says Trump won because children like you held temper tantrums and pooped their diapers over Bernie not winning the nomination. I think saying anything in regard to one thing that made Trump win is pretty reductionist, you know? A link to what? I don't understand what you would want to link to. And again, there's a button on the left side of your keyboard that says caps lock. You push it, and then it'll stop making all your letters capital. Thrash Mia with 50 bits says, it's nice to know the right straw man got to become a boy. Sushi Mom says, Twitch is messing around with auto mod. Okay. Pyromancer says, oh, I missed stream start. This looks really cringy. Yep. Pyromancer says, comrade. Wait, hold on. It's Soros' fault that Poland should have been invaded? Wasn't Soros like 13 years old during World War II? What are you talking about? Oh, is that just a dog whistle? That's probably just a dog whistle, right? That's an anti-Semitism thing? Great. Von Tuck says, I bet his POS Tankie that is against voting has never lifted a finger to do labor organizing or food kitchens, etc., and thinks direct action means tweeting about revolution. Also, aren't countries Tankies love amongst the worst places on earth for the LGBT community? Many of them, yeah. Not pictured off screen is the gun on him. Logarth says, Hannah, look around for videos today. I stumbled across Salty's Puppet channel on YouTube. It's, well, not as bad as the original shows, but basically just CD tier cringe songs. Also, Salty's still voiced by the same dude. I'll have to check it out. Stalin 2024 says, I'm not a Nazi, you morons. Great. Are you, like, explain to me exactly what you want? Someone want to check that link for me from Stalin? CA Corner says, resubscribed for 8 months. Alice Dieform, thanks for following. MMO Addicted with 100 bits says, it's very non-standard in Europe, though it is such a thing here. Pyromancer says, North Korean propaganda is real, but moon landing is just what the US government wants you to think. It's safe? Okay.
Hi there. Interesting things are going on in the US currently, and more or less...
Oh yeah, I had this guy pulled up for one of the other segments. Yeah, it's... Aww. Why'd he get banned? Did he say something? What did he say? Wait, can I see it in the... I can't see it. That's a shame. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. That's a shame. That was fun while it lasted, though. Old Enough to Know More Better, thanks for resubscribing with 10 months. Pyromancer with 20 bits says, what flavor do you think the North Korean Kool-Aid would be? Bland. Andrew Batella says, wait, 77C on the AC? What the F? Logarth says, I would love to see this guy try and walk 5 blocks away from this restaurant, though. See what happens when his handler sees him walking away from the approved zone. Pyromancer says, this stadium event is what Trump wanted so badly. True. MMO Addicted, thank you for subscribing. Or, no, you gifted a sub to Stalin. Thank you for that joke sub. Jeff Millards with 50 bits says, will Tankie... Tankie free sub. Will Tankie for free sub. Pyromancer 56 says, I think Stalin backed Charlie Chaplin. Andrew Patella with 20 bits says, it's so weird how the porn in this VOD started with the money shot and the rest is sheer foreplay. MW1642, thanks for gifting a sub. Logarth with 20 bits says, this guy is like the Tankie version of Liberty Prime. Lily Loves Stuff, thanks for resubscribing for 8 months. 1 month before the stream, baby. Distant Red says Stalin's keyboard doesn't have capitalist's lock. Alright, that's pretty good. MMO Addicted says, rip my and Baja's adopted pet Tankie. They lasted such a short time. It's a shame. It's a shame. So what are we gonna watch next? This is the video the pet Tankie wanted us to watch, so I guess let's give it a shot.
Hi there. Interesting things are going on in the US currently, and more or less worldwide to a lesser extent. As it pertains to the leftist movement generally, though, there's something unsavory that comes up in practically every discussion on theory and tactics. Sadly, a minority of the conversation taking place currently. Talk about socialism, the necessity of revolution, learning from our history, etc., and you'll eventually come across the supposed libertarian-authoritarian divide. You see this nonsense everywhere, on that silly political compass you find online, and if you've been bad this Christmas, then in organizing spaces too.
This person doesn't believe that there's a differentiation between, like, libertarian, not in the, like, libertarian sense, but in the, you know, the opposite of authoritarian sense. He doesn't think there's a dichotomy there, because it's definitely a thing. The political compass isn't perfect, but to not say that there's a difference between someone who advocates for, like, workplace democracy, but through, again, democratic processes, versus someone who wants to do so at gunpoint, they're very different things.
Let me put your mind at ease. This is a meaningless divide. It doesn't materially exist.
It does. It does, though. There's a huge material difference between saying, hey, we've over time convinced everyone that the best way to move forward, or at least most people, the best way to move forward is through workplace democracy and nationalizing certain industries, or all industries if that's what you're going for, and saying, we're nationalizing your business, give us the keys. There's a difference.
Substantiate this in a second, but I'd also like you to think for yourself as to why that is. Clarifying my own position, well, I'm a Marxist-Leninist. I advocate for state socialism. In order to achieve said socialism, I firmly understand and advocate for the necessity of revolution. Reformism has failed over and over, and Rosa Luxemburg has clarified this position plentifully in her landmark work, Reform or Revolution. Not that you even need to read Luxemburg to see this, a cursory glance through the most basic history of the 20th century proves this beyond any doubt. Regardless, as I advocate for revolution, I also understand that this revolution won't manifest from thin air. I understand that it will logically entail a party constituted from the working class with sufficient political will and the support of the people. The work of said party may, we hope, culminate in revolution and the seizure of state power. This will naturally involve some level of violence, probably a lot of it, in fact. No ruling class has ever peacefully given up their own power. Not only this, but I also understand that once state power is seized, we will require all sorts of new organizations to protect the new gains of the working class. An internal security apparatus, a military of some size, or nuclear weapons. Certain levels of repression against reactionary sections of the population, landowners, former capitalists, fascists, etc. This will take the form of re-education or more severe measures if necessary.
Oh, no, you can't do that. You can't. You can't put people in camps to try and re-educate them. No. That's a no-go. That's a no-go for me. Right at the start.
Again, this is something history has proven to be a necessity. By virtue of my advocating of what I mentioned above, I would probably be labeled as an authoritarian. I, of course, reject this label as it's meaningless. Nothing worth doing doesn't require at least some level of authority, and social change necessitates violence. Let's flip over to our libertarian friends. With them, there's a little more diversity in views. I'm discussing only those that are Marxists in this case. I'm not interested in liberals who think voting for Biden or whatever is what should be done. That's the sort of brain rot that'll require its own video. Or reading theory. Please, oh God, read some theory, please. As for libertarian Marxists, logically, they too want revolution, we hope. State or no state. They too think a coordinated effort of the working class with sufficient political will can result in the changes desired. Whether they want this in the form of a party, or through trade unionism only, or through a spontaneous uprising with no vanguard, it doesn't matter. The validity of all these positions is a question of theory that can be discussed elsewhere. Logically, they too also understand, to some level, that reactionary trends will exist after the revolution and will require some level of authority to be dealt with. This is the thing, though. Notice how there are no differences. Within quote-unquote libertarian socialists, if they understand the fact that there will definitely be reactionary trends and fascists to deal with, they would also definitely understand that this means prisons, this means violence, this means some sort of security apparatus to keep track of these people, and on and on. They understand that we have to seize power in one way or another, and it's evident.
Again, the idea of necessitating, I guess it depends on how they define revolution. See, when he says revolution, especially considering he's an authoritarian, Tankie makes me think literally going into businesses with guns and seizing them, right? Or you know, forcing people to how do I put this? Literally going into people's houses and, like, taking things from them is sort of the picture you get, right? As opposed to sort of a more reasonable way to go about it, which is, like, policy making over time, increase taxes on the wealthy and use that to fund, I don't know, the rest of the government and bring other people out of poverty. Like, swift change has a hard time sticking because it's like, it's just brand new and you're forcing people into a system. The only kind of change that lasts is change that is at least somewhat gradual. You can't jump into the pool when it's freezing. You gotta get acclimated in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, the shock is too much for people, and you end up in really bad situations, and you end up killing people and putting people in gulags and concentration camps and all sorts of bullshit. It's not good.
Evidently clear that voting won't accomplish that. That leaves one option, which also means violence. So why do they consider themselves libertarian? If the goals are the same and the methods required to achieve them are by their very nature authoritarian, why do they want to separate themselves, or more correctly, designate some other group as different? When we talk about capitalism, no logical person on the left discusses libertarian capitalism versus authoritarian capitalism. The difference is only in aesthetics. US or French capitalism isn't any more libertarian than Taiwanese or South Korean is authoritarian. Poverty is still violence, lack of healthcare, workers' rights, unemployment, etc., etc. These are all different avenues of the same authoritarian tendencies. Whether a person is barred from making a living because of a debilitating illness or because of racial discrimination, they're both authoritarian in the end. Within socialism, things aren't any different. We need to change the system we live in. The only methods to do so are by definition authoritarian. Libertarian socialists understand this, and they surely aren't pacifists. Yet, to reject so-called authoritarianism, or to label others as authoritarian, despite the fact that both sides of this coin require the same methods to reach their same desired goal, simply makes them out to be just confused. That, or it's a certain measure of fear of the ruling classes labeling you as authoritarian.
I don't believe that you should have a system of government that doesn't come from the consent of the governed, and obviously that doesn't mean that every single person within that government needs to, or who is under the purview of that government, the citizenry, it doesn't mean everyone has to agree with the government. I mean, look at sovereign citizens, for instance, whom I cover on this channel sometimes. They certainly don't consent to the way that the government runs, but nonetheless, the majority of the people in the country consent to how the government runs de facto because they're not overthrowing the government, right? At least to one extent or another. But you can't just enforce it on people. You can't just tell everyone in the country, all right, we're socialists now, because most people are gonna not want that. You need to change people's opinions if you want to have a sustainable model of government. You cannot just threaten people into it. It is a terrible idea.
Saints like Allende and Sankara are demonized.
Society, I recognize, always has some element of coercive things. You know, laws are coercive in nature, even though laws can be very good things, like you're not allowed to murder people or assault people. These are laws that are reasonable and good to maintain society. And of course, there is a threat of some sort of violence involved in that, because if you do these things and you are caught, you will be tried and you will be put in prison for however long, you know, society has decided that crime deserves to be put in jail for. So there is always a sense of, like, coercive justice. I recognize this, but there's a huge difference between that and telling everyone in the country, most of which disagree with your point of view, we are changing the form of government now and you're all gonna hate it, but if you disagree with us, you're all going to the gulags. Completely different.
By them. Their words mean nothing. In the end, the libertarian-authoritarian split, quote-unquote, is nothing but semantics to protect one's feelings. Unsurprisingly, this is something seen almost exclusively in online Western Marxist spaces, as here, in my own third world country, people would laugh at you for insinuating your desire for revolution is anything but authoritarian. This is nothing but a byproduct of over a century of rhetoric that has plunged deep the hatred of all honest and successful revolutionary trends, for softer words and softer identification in order to possibly remind this social other, or perhaps themselves, that they aren't with those leftists, the ones that have successful revolutions, the ones that have lifted millions into literacy.
Ah, yes, the USSR. Very successful. Which is why it still exists today. Fun fact.
In a dignified existence. The ones that defeated the Nazis and invented space travel. The ones that supported countless revolutionary and national liberation struggles worldwide and whose absence is still sorely felt to this day. The ones that succeeded because they didn't shy away from the use of authoritarian means, as they are the only means of success. Had it not been so, Allende's Chile would have worked out. So what's my advice? Drop this nonsense. By virtue of advocating for revolution, you are, by definition, authoritarian. At the same time,
disagree. Again, there's a difference between saying I want reform that's going to change the fundamental ways that our economic and social hierarchical systems work, and even in some ways dismantling current hierarchies, and saying I am going to get a bunch of people together to do X and force other people to do it. That's not okay. These are completely different things, and you're defining them so broadly as both revolution as to make it seem like those two things are materially the same when they are not. They're not even close to the same thing.
Requires social change is at some level also authoritarian. Calling yourself libertarian won't win you any favors from the ruling class, who hate you as much as they hate me.
Beer Maiden says, but we can never change everyone's minds, and capitalists will always try to destroy a socialist movement. This is the tolerance problem. We need to try nonetheless. You cannot have a system in which you are enforcing most people. I'm not saying everyone would be on board. I'm sure there's always going to be a group of people who want to take advantage of others and create hierarchies and become people at the top of it. What I am saying is most people in the general population, the workers themselves, need to be on board. And in the United States, Workers are not on board with this shit as a whole. I'm telling you that. The United States culture is so individualistic that anything involving collectivism makes them want to vomit. I don't agree. I think that's silly and based on a lot of Cold War rhetoric, but it is true nonetheless. And if you don't intend to change those people's minds, you're not going to get anywhere.
Finally, no one has been converted into being a genuine, committed Marxist by these petty appeals for what is essentially software identification for the same desires. If we compromise revolutionary positions in order to get an on-the-fence liberal on our side, we haven't made a new Marxist. We've only made two liberals. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy what I do, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help.
Apparently I'm a liberal
like
now for not wanting to literally overthrow the government.
Wes,
Great.
Soviet Puma, Kong Zhao Hu.
I guess I get to go to brunch now. That's good. This guy is like the tanky version of Liberty Prime. Pyromancer says, think for yourself. Just make sure it's the way I think. Stromboli for Wi-Fi says, hey Hannah, is butt stuff allowed in the tanky utopia? If not, I'm so out. It's mandatory, actually. Storm Ocelot, thanks for following. Pyromancer with 20 bits says, I don't consent to the sun waking me up in the morning. MMO Addicted with 20 bits says, my hottest take ever. Any system is prone to being abused. Keeping it honest and fair is a constant struggle. Communism, collectivism, or socialism will not magically fix things. We can never rest on our laurels. I agree. Clava Faustno with 50 bits says, I just bought a house. Ooh, sweet. I know how that feels. I bought a house. It's great. Congrats. The Carpcosian with $5 says, can you hear me, Hannah? I'm going to be honest with you. I hate this place, this zoo, this prison, this reality, whatever you call it. I can't stand it any longer. It's the authoritarianism. It's repulsive, isn't it? Let's get rid of authoritarian. Authoritarianism is bad. I would agree. I hope you'll be doing better soon. MMO Addicted to 20 bits says, moreover, a forced system change will tempt the ones enacting change to see themselves as the paragons of the new system, first amongst equals. Yeah, it's the Animal Farm problem. Colossus TV with 20 bits says, will bits magically fix things? Yes, everyone should send me bits, because it will magically fix things, actually. That's exactly how this works. Who else do we have? This person hasn't posted in 2 years, so I'm probably not going to cover them. Oh, people actually did do bit messages. Colossus TV with 20 bits says, okay, good. Keirthan with 100 bits says, you got it, boss. Mix Gothy Queer says, yay, magic. Ghetto Kanye with 20 bits says, hey, Hannah, I missed most of the stream because I had a whole ordeal with my dog this afternoon, but how's the stream going? It's going pretty good. Thanks for asking. Steve with a Q with 50 bits says, magic fix bits. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to fixing literally everything, so thank you. Who is this person? Jason Unruch, Marxist political commentator and journalist. So is this person a tankie? This is interesting. They're covering Chinese court says homosexuality can be listed as a mental disorder. Let's see what he has to say about this.
There's a very controversial story coming
Ooh, this guy needs some sound masking or something.
Out of China, where a court just ruled that homosexuality can be listed as a psychological disorder, upholding a decision in favor of a textbook publisher. Now, essentially what happens is this school textbook says that homosexuality is a mental disorder. Now, this person took exception to that because it's not a mental disorder and took them to court. Now, the court ruled that the textbook maker had a right to an opinion, and thus the textbook could continue to claim that homosexuality is a mental disorder, even though it's, not. The plaintiff, Wu Xiaoyong, was disappointed at the decision and basically made it clear that they were going to take things further. They said that the opinion that it was an error as opposed to a difference of opinion was random and baseless. And she also hinted to the South China Morning Post that
how does this guy have 41,000 subscribers? He's got the charisma of a dead rat.
Be still much more work to be done. She revealed she planned to work with others in the community to push the case further. They didn't even have a trial. They just handed down a judgment, she complained. So essentially, yes, a judge just decided, yeah, you're allowed to have an opinion in what is supposed to be a textbook for learning. Those ones that are supposed to be based on science. Now, obviously, it is wrong to list homosexuality as a mental illness because it's not. And
here comes the butt. I have a feeling the butt is about to come. Why do I use the words I use? God damn it.
Does appear in 1,200 other species on Earth. Now, that's not the real story here. The real story here is people claiming that China just ruled that homosexuality is a mental illness, which is not what happened. This judge, in this particular case, ruled that someone could have the opinion that it is a mental illness when writing a textbook, which is wrong in itself. I mean, they're supposed to be based on science. Now, this is very different from suddenly saying that now the Chinese government regards homosexuality as a mental illness. Obviously, that is not the case. This is one judge who ruled that somebody could have the opinion of it, not that it now becomes enshrined in Chinese law. I think what we do need to do here is wait to see what the federal government of China does in this situation. Now, they may step in and say, no, homosexuality is not a mental illness. Or they may come down and say that a textbook has the right to have an opinion, a wrong one, which is scientifically provably false, but I digress. So far be it from this being some kind of national
I am ignoring your message. I read it though.
policy. Now, this is just one judge's decision, which is being taken out of context, and that context being the right to have a wrong opinion in what is supposed to be a scientific work. So, what we do need to do is wait to see what the Chinese government does overall, and whether or not they comment on this situation.
Holy shit, I can't even get it. That's so boring. Yeah, I am blushing. I really didn't mean to make that snafu with what I was saying. Someone said he's a transphobe. I'm curious where that comes up in his videos. Oh no, here's a video from 10 years ago where he said, U.S. war with China almost inevitable.
The conditions that precipitated World War I and II are beginning to show their ugly heads again. A trade war between the United States and China is beginning to build.
I did not see Abigail's new video, no.
The need for resources, for profitable trade, is driving both sides into a struggle that may cause another world war. Currently, the U.S. is trying to accuse China of being a currency manipulator. This way, they can have a justification for levying penalties. Economist Fred Bergstein at a House Ways and Means Committee hearing last week claimed China was undervaluing its yuan by 40% against the US dollar. He claimed this causes large job losses and is causing rapidly increasing trade deficit. He ordered the government to label China a currency manipulator. In doing so, they could order the International Monetary Fund and the World Trade Organization into forcing China to revalue its currency. Bergstein also appealed to Europe for support in intimidating China. However, Europe has its own problems to deal with and will probably not support the US aggression on China. The current EU conflict on how best to deal with the enormous Greek debt has placed the future of the euro in question. The fall of the euro has also been a boon to exporters in Europe, which is profitable to them to the lower-end countries of the EU, like Bulgaria. Such a US rallying call against China is likely to fall on deaf ears in the Asia-Pacific region, like Japan, where many countries greatly depend on exports to China just to keep their economies going. If these countries were to join the US aggression against China, they would no doubt suffer economic retaliation by Beijing. China will not bow to US
this guy's
pressures.
boring as shit.
How
does he, I mean, I guess he's been posting videos for 10 years. He has 40,000 subscribers in 10 years. I guess I get it, but, like, not great. Oh no, he has a video on bronies.
Alright, I am making this video at the request of Brett's World. Now, Brett, don't say I don't give you anything. As pretty much the entire world is
that Stalin guy from chat earlier is messaging me.
aware by now, there's this phenomenon known as bronies. Now, bronies comes from the show My Little Pony, a show intended for little girls. It's about these cartoon horses that exist in a kingdom or something. For
hold on, let me. Okay, here's what he said. Here's what Stalin said. And yes, in case you're wondering, it's still in all caps. I'm gonna piss on your grave when you die of diabetes. Same for the dumbasses in your chat. You blocked me. You're the authoritarian. I know, we all remember the great genocide that is blocking people on Twitch for calling people cucks. Jason is a million times better than you. Which one is Jason? I don't remember these people's names. If you're still here, Stalin, again, the caps lock button is on the left of your keyboard. Press the caps lock. It'll fix the all caps problem that you've been having.
Whatever reason, and their thing is that friendship is magic and whatnot. The part of it that has broken out into such discussion is the fact that a lot of the fans of it are either adult men or teenage boys.
Oh no, he's doing the cigar thing! I'm a man. I've got a cigar while I film this video. Bonus points if later in the video he pulls up a scotch on the rocks. I've seen Christopher Hitchens videos.
And
I don't think... Oh, God. I think an authoritarian communist trying to shit-talk bronies while smoking a cigar is one of the cringiest things I've ever seen in my life.
A lot of people are against this, and it's become this whole phenomenon in and of itself. And a lot of people have expressed a lot of anger towards it, and to others it's a nice welcome fantasy, a part of their lives, and it becomes a part of who they are. And it's become this big social phenomenon.
By the way, my opinion on bronies is I don't give a shit. If you like the show, that's fine. Just don't be a toxic asshole. Jenny Nichols has a pretty good video on the brony phenomena, and according to her, there's a lot of toxic elements of the fandom, but there are in any fandom. If you like the show or whatever, that's fine. Just, you know, don't be a dick about it.
I'm not surprised that something like this would come up. In fact, we should probably expect it to happen a lot more. We live in a system predicated on greed.
Ooh, Sushi Mom got DM'd too.
Greed, hatred, prejudice, and trying to get over on each other. This is the basis, the economic and philosophical basis of capitalism, that we're all fighting with each other to compete, and this, you know, theoretically does some good. and it creates a better world. However, it is a world based on greed and not trusting people and trying to get over on each other in order to succeed. Now, this isn't just the capitalist class itself. It's something that very much the rest of us are relegated to. We do not get jobs. We compete for jobs. We have to compete for jobs. We have to compete with our dollars to get food. We have to compete in order to survive.
What does this have to do with bronies?
This is nothing but a system constantly putting us against each other. Now, you can make people very, very cynical like that. Ayn Rand was just a tremendous example of becoming so jaded from such a system. Now, some may argue she was born that way, but the point is, her ideology epitomizes capitalism and epitomizes the men.
This is a serfs debate with him that lasts 5 minutes.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Do you want to quickly say your name or something so I can adjust the audio levels just on the fly?
Jason Unruh.
Sorry, maybe more than 2 words, like host of...
The quick brown fox jumped over the whatever kind of fence.
Why is he being a dick about it? You can disagree with people, but if you're going on to talk on the show, you need to do audio levels. What's the attitude about? Jesus.
Alrighty, there we have it. Alright, everyone, I have Jason. We are speaking to each other. I don't know if we really have a format for this, because, I mean, we have a lot of wild accusations that have gone in both directions.
I'm pretty sure you name-calling me wasn't a wild accusation.
It wasn't a wild accusation. So should we just go down the list? I've written down...
No, we agreed to debate whether or not China is socialist. And then you last night sent me a message saying, oh, can we do this other stuff too?
So this is already strange. I put out a tweet, and I've got the tweet in front of me. So the tweet says, here's the debate topic. Possible, is China communist or social?
Interesting that he's not showing the upper messages, right? If he wanted to show that they already agreed to something, surely you would show the message where you had him agree, and not just you claiming he agreed, right?
And you responded, there's no
I don't know if Lance had a different thing where he actually showed the whole conversation or what.
You're going to prove it's socialist. That's not, I agree to this debate.
Yeah,
or
actually,
here's my position. This is just a random sentence coming out of my mouth.
No, so. It isn't. It is an acceptance, and then I repeatedly tweeted out in other times and on Facebook that was what was going to be the debate.
Well,
because that was the impression that I was left by the fact that you had given that, and then
okay,
I accepted.
Well, first off, you have to say I accept these terms and I agree in the positive or the negative. Like, I don't even know where you stand on this, on that topic. If you want us to start there, we can.
Then
but
why don't you think you should have looked that up before suggesting that?
Shouldn't I have looked up your position on the topic before suggesting a debate on the topic?
Yeah.
Should like, this is the exact same problem that you're now pointing at me. I mean, I don't want to sit in here and do a conversation of semantics. You've wanted to apparently have a conversation with me for some time. There's a handful of reasons
why.
No,
I said a debate. Okay, I've never said a conversation. Debate. I'm not interested in having a conversation with you.
All right. Well, okay. If we're gonna have a debate, we should debate on things that we can actually talk about. If we're gonna talk about
no,
China,
we agreed to China.
On it.
I knew this is exactly what I knew was gonna happen. You tweeted out China. I accepted. And then I put out on Facebook and again out on Twitter, I don't know why this debate would take place as we both have the same position. No, this is you saying...
I tweeted on Parler about 2 weeks ago, and you didn't respond to that. I also tweeted on TikTok.
Well, no, because I don't use Parler.
That. So why didn't you respond to my Facebook group? I don't have Facebook, buddy. So what do you expect me to be?
And
I've written all over the internet about this. That doesn't mean anything to me.
We both have Twitter.
You have a Facebook group? Fantastic.
It's not a group, it's a page, but we're both on Twitter.
Okay, we're both on Twitter, and I'm trying to pull up the tweet right now so I can see whether you said, yes, I agree to these terms, let's do
No, I didn't use those exact words. But I said, okay, on, and then
Okay, I assume this continues to go off the rails. I want to hear about the brony shit.
Mentality of the system that we have. When you have a system based on so much hate, greed, and prejudice. And capitalism breeds prejudice tremendously. I don't even mean in the overt ways of pushing us to fear our neighbor and push racist thinking in order to perpetuate that hatred so that we have an excuse to go to war, and thus we have a manufactured consent of going to war.
These are the DMs that Stalin guy is saying. Your name is so blank. You, this word, loser, this, cancer, stop stealing my oxygen. Stay mad, Tankie. F you, lib shit loser dork. Oh no, I'm so scared. C-word, waste man. LOL, keep going. You should have been aborted. Probably. I'm glad you're here, Sushi Mom. This is about me being a ginger. That's good. They always get so mad. Why are they so mad? Why you have to be mad? Hold on. Where is that video? What is it?
That's a hockey, you know, it's only a game. Why you have to be mad? He's a good guy.
Why you have to be mad?
It pits us against each other all the time, even in smaller, normal social situations. There are so many times people are like, oh, I got the greatest shit here, and then that builds up some kind of resentment, and then they're like, oh, what an asshole, you're always putting that in our face. This is just on a basic daily human level. This is the kind of world that we're fed. We should not be surprised that people are trying to escape that. And I think that's what the whole brony thing really is. How these people really do treasure friendship and happiness. Because I think that is what they really want. They want an escape from the system that we have.
You found the caps lock key? Oh, good for him. Good for him. See, we did change someone today. They learned to not yell on the internet. I mean, they'll still be yelling on the internet, but they won't be doing so in all caps. So that's a bonus.
They don't understand it on an economic, political level, but they understand it on a social level. We don't live in a happy, accepting world that's based on being friends and understanding that we are all part of a greater whole. And they want away from that. They want into a place that's nice. They want a place that has friendship. And that is not abnormal. Human beings don't naturally want to fight and kill each other.
Human history would very much beg to differ.
Personal discrepancies can come up, but we are not creatures of war. War is something that is invented.
It was invented a very long time ago.
Millions of troops going to fight something is not something that comes natural to us.
There are like chimpanzee groups that go to war with each other. Like, I don't mean to be this person. I would love for human beings to learn to be peaceful with one another. But conflict is pretty inherent in our nature. It's not good. I think we should change that and continue to work to do so. But to say that, like, our natural state is some sort of, like, idealized, noble savage trope where it's like, oh, we're all living in a garden, naked and peaceful and eating fruit. And it's like, nah. Human beings are pretty shit, so...
Getting mad at one guy and maybe in the heat wanting to kill somebody for a personal injustice or some kind of perceived slight is normal. The mass mobilization of millions of people and trillions of dollars into war materials is not natural.
It's the same thing on a larger scale. It's the same thing on a larger scale. people end up wanting something, either politically or actual material resources. They have people within their authority in some way, and they say, okay, go do this thing. And then they do that thing. It's just a bigger version of that same thing. It's the bigger version of Grog have rock, me want rock, me kill Grog, me get rock. It's that, but with thousands and thousands of years of advancement, both socially and technologically.
And that is the war, the world that we are faced with. A constant, unending war. And it doesn't really matter even which country you're in. You are constantly being faced with war. Whether you live here and the constant threat of terrorism and the war on terrorism, or you live in North Korea where you're constantly getting threatened by foreign powers for the way that you choose to live. Or even if you're just...
I feel like there are other issues that North Koreans also deal with. This is another guy who thinks North Korea is just the bestest.
Just in bloody Europe, which for the most part wants peace. Not to mention for the fact they've got a whole lot of bigger problems right now. People keep being fed hostility, violence, and war, and people are not naturally like that. People want an escape from it. Now, having said that, the bronyism, the adulteration of this cartoon can in some ways be understood like religion. Now, I don't mean it's a religion like they're all brainwashed and they're going along with it, following a leader or something like that. I don't mean it in that context. I mean it in the original context in which Marx described religion being the opium of the masses.
Ponies are the opiates of the masses, confirmed. I gotta hear that one again.
With it, following a leader or something like that. I don't mean it in that context. I mean it in the original context in which Marx described religion being the opium of the masses. Not opium in the sense of...
That's it. We know it. This guy's cutie mark is the USSR sickle hammer. Marx had a lot to say about My Little Pony. I'll have you know that, okay? Marx was an alicorn.
Something to make you hallucinate, not a hallucinogen to make you perceive something that isn't there. That's not the context in which he'd meant it. The context he did mean it as, he meant it as a painkiller. Now, at his time, opium just came out as a painkiller for medical work. That's the context in which he meant it. It's, the sigh of the oppressed masses. They live in a poisonous culture. They live in a poisonous society surrounded by hatred and anger. And this My Little Pony stuff is a little part where they can get away.
I think I saw a couple episodes of the show when it initially came out because I heard about the whole brony thing and I was like, okay, is it a good show? It's probably a good show. I didn't really get into it though.
And start feeling...
But I'm aware of it. I'm mostly aware of it weirdly because of Christine Chandler, who is into it. So I've picked up some of it from reading her stuff or seeing some of her videos, but I haven't really watched the show now.
Not like losers, but start to feel like normal human beings. The fact that it is characterized in a cartoon and that its culture becomes that of a cartoon is not a commentary on them. It is a commentary on us.
Or people who tend to... I don't mean to be insulting to bronies in any way, shape, or form, or Pegasisters. I think that's the female version of a brony. I think a lot of brony culture stems from, in some ways, people who maybe feel detached from other people in some ways, or at least they did when they initially were introduced to the show in their youth or earlier on when it first came out, however old they were at the time. And the show has, for one thing, I'm sure I've seen it. I've seen a couple episodes. It's a well-animated show. It's a well-voice-acted show. And from what I've heard, the writing's good for a children's show. It has a lot to do with the characters' interpersonal conflicts, and people are into that, and that's great. But on top of that, it has themes of friendship and camaraderie and stuff, and that appeals to people, especially people who feel isolated. So it's that. I don't think it and you can talk about, like, isolation under capitalism and how there's interplay between those two things, but I don't think most people would say, I like My Little Pony because I feel isolated under capitalism. I think they'd say, I like My Little Pony because friendship is magic or whatever.
As a whole.
Or because they want to fuck the ponies. Which is a thing.
As a society we live in, because we live in such a painful one. Some people get out in other ways. Online gaming is one way. There's all kinds of ways that you could be doing it to get out. So this whole brony phenomenon is not something that should be unexpected. In fact, it is the symptom of a much larger social problem. One can't deny the society we live in, nor can they deny the effects of it.
His prop cigar's going out. He's got to stoke it a little bit. Okay, good.
Our goal
definitely don't want to
should be
inhale,
to
though.
fix the problems that we have, or recognize the problems that we have, and overcome them. Build a better society so people won't want to escape into a better one.
Well, there you go. There's your talking point. Masses, workers, if we can seize the means of production and throw off our shackles, bronies will stop existing. And from that day forward, capitalism ceased to exist.
So the bronies are not some kind of illness. In a sense, they actually might be the most sane ones. Not the most sane because they want to get away with... Not the most... They're sane because they're recognizing something's wrong and wanting to get away with it. To go the full course, they would realize there's something wrong with this society and want to change it, but you cannot blame them for wanting to get away from it.
Okay. Tapping out. I'm tapping out of this one. He certainly has opinions on bronies. Oh no, he has a video on the new Ghostbusters movie. Well, new. 4 years ago, the 2016. Well, 5 years ago now, but it hasn't been quite, the 2016 Ghostbusters. Okay, that's enough of him for the day. Today I want just sort of a smattering of different Tankies so I can see what they're individually about, so for future Tankie watches we can sort of know what we're getting into. I think we watched this at some point, didn't we? This person, tries to underplay or something, the Tiananmen Square stuff.
Recently on the internet, everywhere you go...
We did infrared earlier.
You see the topic of Tiananmen Square on non-political subreddits, like our pics and our videos. You see people just screaming about Tiananmen Square and spamming it everywhere. And a lot of people... most people know absolutely nothing about Tiananmen Square. Even, a lot of left-leaning people are falling for this whole idea that the Tiananmen Square was this protest. Just wanted simple, basic rights and freedom, and the Chinese government just murdered thousands upon thousands of people.
Yeah, I think we did watch this, and he, straight up lies in the video about this. And I debunked it. I don't remember, though. It's been a while.
And some actually believe that they were socialists because they sang a song. They have to be socialists if they sing songs. Well, here I'm going to be using all Western sources because, interestingly enough, the West is honest about Tiananmen Square. I mean, they try and spin it to act as if the Tiananmen Square protesters were the heroes, but if you actually sit down and look at the facts, it does not seem that way at all. What were the goals of Tiananmen Square? Well, it had nothing to do with the workers, nothing to do with raising their standard of living. One of the leaders argued for pay raises for...
This literally says he's saying freedom of association and freedom of speech.
For the intellectuals, not the workers.
Raise the pay of intellectuals.
Were they protesting against the Deng Xiaoping reforms? Again, not necessarily. They were protesting the reforms because there wasn't enough. They cried, continue the reforms, as if they weren't enough. One huge thing that the protest leaders were talking about was that they were not trying to overthrow the Communist Party or socialism.
That makes it worse. You understand that, right? That makes it worse that the government came in and murdered them? That they weren't intending to overthrow the government, they were just protesting peacefully to call for reforms?
They just wanted a dialogue. They just wanted to work with the government.
And then the government killed them with tanks.
Away, and they wanted to talk about their constitutional rights.
The aim of dialogue was not to solve everything at once. We wanted to establish some ground rules, open up some channels for communication, so that whenever problems arose, there'd be ways of resolving them. We wanted to lay some foundations for the future. We wanted to make a good start. What we were hoping for was gradual progress, reform, not cataclysmic change, not revolution. Because honestly, in 1989, the situation wasn't so bad that people felt they needed a revolution.
A new path seemed to be opening up. A path leading away from the confrontational politics that had dominated China for decades. The path China had long ago failed to take.
Well, there were certain leaders that emerged from the Tiananmen Square protests. And the documentary, The Gate of Heavenly Peace, which was made by the United States government, Ford and the Rockefellers, interviewed quite a bit of these leaders. Although the film mocks the CPC for believing that the Tiananmen Square protests were some type of conspiracy to undermine the party.
I met someone who had just come from China. He said, "What do you think you can do back there? Haven't you heard about the editorial that just appeared? It calls the movement a plot by a small handful to instigate anti-party, anti-state Dongluan."
Dongluan. Turmoil, upheaval, chaos. A People's Daily editorial denounced the demonstrations. "We must unequivocally oppose Dongluan," the headline read. Once again, a small handful of conspirators were supposedly plotting to bring down the state. Once again, the irrevocable judgment was passed.
The editorial of April 26th caught the students by total surprise. We didn't expect that the government would jump to such a vicious conclusion about us. We felt that without large-scale street action, we couldn't compete with the propaganda machine of the government, and the people wouldn't know the truth about what we were doing.
The Chinese Constitution guarantees the people free speech and the right to demonstrate. But Chinese law punishes counter-revolutionary instigation by the enemies of the people. The final arbiter was the Communist Party. Were the students the people? Or were they now enemies of the people who must be suppressed?
When you get the leaders behind closed doors, that's exactly what they said they were trying to do.
I thought the only workable thing was to join up and try and change it. Committing suicide myself wouldn't do the country much good. A more useful thing to do was to help the Communist Party commit suicide. Lenin had taught us that the easiest way to take a fortress is from within. There's also the Trojan horse in ancient Greece. If you can't win through confrontation, you have to try sneaking inside.
What a student movement represents is a call for social justice. There are times when we have no choice but to take to the streets to express our ideas, vent our anger, and show our determination to change things. April 27th was such a time. The students did a great job, and the government was forced to change its usual behavior. But our ultimate goal is to change the entire system. This cannot be accomplished by students staying in the streets.
I was especially surprised that this documentary included some of the stuff that Chai Ling was saying, one of the top student leaders.
Many students do not understand that the square is our only stronghold. Some people have repeatedly advocated that we leave, but that could only please the government. What makes me really sad is that I am the commander-in-chief, and I can't let go of this power because I must resist compromise, resist these traitors. The leaders of the independent student unions of Beijing and of the provinces are all after my power. I used to believe that we could establish democratic processes, and then a lot of people could use science to really help our country. But now I've come to realize that unless we overthrow this inhuman government, our country will have no hope. Our people will have no hope.
Oh, am I supposed to think because she said that it's okay that they brought tanks and murdered a bunch of people? Unarmed people? 'Cause no. That's not okay.
Chai Ling had successfully resisted their proposal to move the struggle back to the campuses and allied herself once more with those determined to hold the square. On the following morning,
Some people wanted a link. Let me see if he does, actually, to his credit, he has all his sources here. So let me see if I can see it. Looks like this is it.
South end of the square.
Here's a link to part 1. And then part 2 is here. Looks like about 3.5 hours or so overall.
Contacted American journalist Philip Cunningham.
I have been feeling very sad recently. The students themselves lack a developed sense of democracy. To be honest, from the day I called for a hunger strike, I knew we would not get any results. Certain people, certain causes are bound to fail. I have been very clear about this all along, but I've made an effort to present a staunch image, to show that we were striving for victory. But deep down, I knew it was all futile. The more involved I got, the sadder I became. I already felt this back in April. All along, I've kept it to myself, because being Chinese, I felt I shouldn't badmouth the Chinese. But I can't help thinking sometimes, and I might as well say it. You, the Chinese, you are not worth my struggle. You are not worth my sacrifice. But then, I can also see that in this movement, there are many people who do have a conscience. There are many decent people among the students, workers, citizens, and intellectuals. The students keep asking, what should we do next? What can we accomplish? I feel so sad. Because how can I tell them that what we are actually hoping for is bloodshed? For the moment when the government has no choice but to brazenly butcher the people. Only when the square is awash with blood will the people of China open their eyes. Only then will they really be united. But how can I explain any of this to my fellow students? And what is truly sad is that some students and some famous, well-connected people are working hard to help the government, to prevent it from taking such measures. For the sake of their selfish interests and their private dealings, they are trying to cause our movement to collapse and get us out of the square before the government becomes so desperate that it takes action. If we allow the movement to collapse on its own, then the government will be able to wipe out all the leaders of the movement, as well as those leaders in the party and in the military who dare to oppose them, who represent the people. Deng Xiaoping has made it very clear that there is a small handful of people, not only in the party and in society, but also among the students. That's why I feel so sad, because I can't say all this to my fellow students. I can't tell them straight out that we must use our blood and our lives to call on the people to rise up. Of course, the students will be willing, but they are still such young children.
Well, that's super
and
sad.
And she cries like she's the victim.
What? What? Ah! The government's coming to kill her and everyone else. She is the victim. Oh, good lord.
She knowingly manipulated people and lied to people, but it's her that's the victim. So, not only were they trying to overthrow the Communist Party, but they were lying to everyone about their goals. And you see this because they have...
Is this another person who thinks George fucking... Jesus... Ah!
Severe hatred of the Chinese masses and the Chinese workers. That's clear from nearly every single leader, proclaiming that the Chinese just aren't smart enough.
I believe that what the Chinese lack is not ideals, but the means through which to realize them. Not courage, but the wisdom necessary to achieve their goal. What the Chinese lack is not a heart, but a mind.
Indeed, this hatred of the masses manifested itself in the form of anti-democracy when it comes to one of the other top leaders, Wang Dan. This man, Wang Dan, was not elected, and they freely admit that.
Of April 19th, a new student union was formed at Beijing University. 7 people volunteered to be on the organizing committee. They became the leaders because they were courageous enough to step forward. There were no formal elections. Later, the committee made many efforts to organize elections, but because we constantly faced new crises, we couldn't do what we'd originally intended.
In fact, Wang Dan was an ultra-capitalist, saying the pursuit of wealth is part of the impetus for democracy, and indeed also harbored an extreme hatred of the workers.
None of this justifies murdering a bunch of unarmed protesters. You can disagree with him and also recognize that it's disgusting for the government to come in with tanks and try and kill him and people who are like him. For instance, there are people I very much disagree with. Trump supporters, for instance. But if Trump supporters are genuinely protesting peacefully somewhere, and tanks roll in and murder everyone, that's disgusting. That's fucked up. I don't have to agree with someone for them to not for them to have the right to not be murdered in the street.
To the point where he didn't believe in democracy for the workers. The movement is not ready for worker participation because the principles of democracy must first be absorbed by the students and intellectuals before they can spread to others. The limits of democracy. You can't have direct democracy where everyone is electing leaders. That would be a representative democracy. And trying to get involved because it only results in frequent changes of leaders and causes disorder. So for being a leader of a democratic movement, he was radically anti-democratic, unless you were part of the intellectual elite. In another interview, he stated that we need something like a shadow cabinet. We need to come out with a political white paper, how to conduct privatization of land, how to define a new university self-governance law.
Yeah, I probably disagree with this guy. People like him don't deserve to be murdered, though. Bold take.
This movement loved democracy so much that they had political suppression within their own ranks. The exact thing they were criticizing the Chinese government for, they talked about how they constantly did.
Faced with a territory and a population to govern, the student leaders on the square found themselves recreating in miniature all the real-life problems of having and holding power. External threats of government repression meant enforcing internal security. Disagreements with the leadership were labeled betrayal, sabotage, by the familiar small handful of plotters. Struggles between the groups vying for power in the square grew increasingly ugly.
Once they took control of the broadcast station, they were in power. Often we had to suppress 3 or 4 coups a day. At the time, I even joked. Now I finally understand why Li Peng wanted to suppress the students.
What's more human than people trying to get together and start a new organization to oppose the people in power, only to end up causing similar issues because power corrupts? Human beings are frustrating.
Once I made a suggestion to the students. That was around May 23rd. I said, why not hold an election at the square or on your campuses? One student, one vote, and elect leaders of the student union. But they felt elections were unthinkable in the middle of all that chaos. Then a week later...
Logistically, I would think it would be a pain in the ass, but I don't know. I wasn't there.
I heard that the students were setting up a democracy university in the square. I thought, well, that's...
Good night, the creeping darkness. Thanks for coming.
Suggestion of mine was at the level of a democracy kindergarten.
That's a good point. Field Weddell says it's the he wasn't an angel argument. Yeah. It's basically, you know, they were doing something wrong, so they deserved it. No, they didn't. No one deserves to be gunned down in the street like that.
You people didn't like it. So now you're setting up a democracy university. But no matter what, you still have to vote.
Now, according to...
Is that a hedgehog? It's so cute.
Wikipedia, the Tiananmen Square protests never really surpassed 1 million people. At the time they were clearing the square, there was about 70,000 people in the square. That's out of 1.1 billion people. So, no, this wasn't a mass movement. This was a movement of intellectuals. They received millions of...
Okay. In many ways, so was the... Okay, we're not going to get into this.
upon millions of dollars.
Most revolutionary actions are initiated and informed by intellectuals convincing others around them to take action. It is very rare that just your average Joe Schmo worker gets together with their friends and creates a mass movement.
Through Hong Kong and international funds.
我们对香港各界朋友的大力支持啊，首先表示感谢。同时，我们有了这种支持，我们相信我们的信心得到了更大的增强。
And how did you raise the money in Hong Kong?
Many ways. For example, there was one concert for the democracy in China. In that concert alone, 14 million Hong Kong dollars, 14. Was raised, okay, and through other channels, phone in, or many channels, through Federation of Student Union in Hong Kong, they raised more than 10 million. So we are talking about quite some money here.
International support suggested the possibility of a real victory for the movement.
And they put it to good use by building a Statue of Liberty. Before we actually get to the events of June 4th, perhaps for some reason you still don't believe that the leaders, group of US-backed capitalists, well, the New York Times did a little "Where Are They Now?" article which followed up on the major leaders of Tiananmen Square. We have the anti-democratic leader Wang Dan, who was arrested and not executed. He served 4 years in prison and then was released. How brutal. After going to jail again, he left.
Yeah, no thanks. I'd rather not go to jail in China.
Left for the United States, went to a wealthy university, and is now a privileged college professor. Wu Kai-shi.
He only went to jail for 4 years for protesting.
He, again, fled to Hong Kong, then to France, then to the United States, and is now an investment banker in Taiwan. Liu Gang.
Okay.
Again.
A lot of people are investment bankers. I'm not a fan. But again, like, what? Did he deserve to be murdered because of that?
Fled to the United States. Now works in Wall Street. Chai Ling. Again, fled to the United States, got a business degree, and became a capitalist.
Okay? Again, none of this means that they should have been violently silenced by the government.
Zhu Fengxiu got a graduate degree in business and works in finance. Li Lu, again, fled to the United States and became a hedge fund manager of a multi-million-dollar company and perhaps had ties to Warren Buffett. Xiaoyang Yan, again, fled to the United States, joined the military, and helped give freedom to the people of Iraq. There seems to be a common theme here. Now, what exactly happened? How does this film talk about the actual events of June 4th? This is a film produced, again, by the Rockefellers, by the Fords, by the United States government. This is not the Chinese government producing this. So, they talk about this is before any shot was fired, before June 4th. They robbed a military bus. And assaulted soldiers.
Wait, you just shit-talked the United States military, but all of a sudden the Chinese military's good and you care that they hijacked a military bus? Which is it?
Army units once again attempted to get to the square.
Those same army units later slaughtered people in the streets, by the way, so sorry if I don't feel bad for them for having their bus hijacked.
Most of the troops weren't in combat gear, but people were outraged to find that some were actually armed. Protesters confiscated guns, cattle prods, cleavers, and knives, and displayed them as proof that the government intended to use violence. Then they turned the weapons over to the city police.
So they didn't even hold on to the weapons. They turned them over to the police. They could have easily held on to them.
When day came, crowds had stopped buses being used to transport weapons into the city and were ejecting the soldiers.
The documentary doesn't say this, but
I'm gonna have to turn the screen off during the graphic photo part, obviously.
some of them were indeed burned alive. This was before any shot was fired. At the night of June 4th, things amped up. An armored car drove into the square, and a Molotov cocktail was thrown at it. Again, no gunfire was occurring.
Around 11 o'clock.
Am I supposed to feel bad for the tank? I don't.
2 hours before the main body of the troops arrived.
Sure, we were trying to come in and kill them with an armed vehicle, but they threw a Molotov cocktail at us. Yeah, don't do that then.
A single armored personnel carrier drove into the square.
Workers and Beijing residents stopped it. Someone hit it with a Molotov cocktail, and it caught fire.
Yay! That was a good shot. Whoever threw that.
The fire hardly slowed it down. Frankly, I was scared and got out of its way.
Looks like Ghost Rider's driving it.
Everyone got out of its way.
The official loudspeakers around the square suddenly came on and announced the emergency orders of the martial law troops. They said that the government was determined to suppress the counter-revolutionary violent rioting at all costs.
Only after the protesters already initiated deadly force did the...
They threw because they brought a fucking, like, an armored vehicle with troops. They brought in army members with guns. Really?
Soldiers respond in kind. In fact, all the...
He has to say deadly force because none of the soldiers were actually killed, but the force itself was deadly, theoretically.
Video of people getting shot, you can also see that the protesters were throwing Molotov cocktails, a deadly weapon.
Yeah, they're being shot at. I would expect some tit for tat here. They're defending themselves, you douche. I'm gonna take it off the screen again just in case there's anything, you know.
So after the soldiers put down the frenzied rioters, they opened a dialogue with the students, and the student leaders agreed to end the protests and clear the square. Now, the film mocks with the Chinese government's account of Tiananmen Square that there was no violence within the square itself, but there were rioters around the square who were using deadly weapons and perhaps had firearms on them, and those were the ones who were violently suppressed, not the mass of students within the square itself. They mocked this version of events, and then later confirmed that it's correct.
Almost as soon as the struggle over Tiananmen Square ended, the struggle over the story of what happened there began. The official account was this: no one had died during the clearing of the square at dawn on June 4th. In the approaches to the square, some ruffians who had incited counter-revolutionary violence had been killed, as had a small number of innocent bystanders. The government went to extraordinary lengths to hunt down and punish anyone whose story strayed from the official line.
They quote Chai.
Wait, he just said they confirmed it in the doc. No, they just said the official line was. They weren't saying that was true. They were saying this is what the Chinese government said. Did you even listen to the thing you just said? What?
Ling, because we know she's trustworthy, saying that people were being ran over while they were sleeping. But we had another leader of the protests confirm that that was a lie.
Some people said that 200 died in the square, and others claimed that 2,000 died there. There are also stories of tanks in the square running over students who were trying to leave. I have to say that I did not see any of that. I don't know where those people did.
Because he didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. He's one individual amongst thousands upon thousands of people there.
I myself was in the square until 6:30 in the morning. I kept thinking, are we going to use lies to attack an enemy who lies? Aren't facts powerful enough? To tell lies against our enemy's lies only satisfies our need to vent our anger. But it's a dangerous thing to do. Maybe your lies will be exposed, and you'll be powerless to fight your enemy.
The Chinese government was correct then in their version of events. And this has been confirmed by linked documents by WikiLeaks. I mean, the Western powers basically admitted it. They claimed the Chinese government was wrong and that they were trying to overthrow socialism in the party. Well, that's clearly false. The documentary itself disproved that. And the documentary then confirms that the CPC was correct in their events that happened in Tiananmen Square. And honestly, what exactly would happen if the Chinese government set up 2,000 satellites to propagate things around Times Square, and students took over Times Square, built a mini terracotta army, assaulted US soldiers, set them on fire, threw Molotov cocktails at army personnel? What exactly would the US government do?
Are you expecting me to think it's okay for the United States government to go in and wipe out people that they disagree with? Because I don't. I don't play that fucking game. Bad's bad. I don't care who's doing it.
What's more, what if all the leaders fled to China and became super wealthy? Do you think that maybe it would have been Chinese-backed if that happened in the United States? You can read the sources yourself, all of them. Every single source I have used has been a Western source. Not pro-Chinese, but radically anti-Chinese. So don't believe the nonsense about Tiananmen Square. Stuff like this has happened to countries all across the globe. The United States wants you to focus on China as being the #1 enemy, while they overthrow governments, have hundreds and hundreds of military bases overseas, and drone strike children. But no, that doesn't seem to really matter to most people.
Oh, Jesus Christ, and then he's gonna show like an... Oh, no. Okay, that was a really bad one. Jesus Christ. I'm sure we'll come back to this guy later. Although he hasn't posted in 7 months. But he's got a back catalog, so... Well, we have other people to look at, but I think we're going to probably call it a night. It's been 3 hours. That's probably good for the first test episode of Tankie Watch. We'll be doing this occasionally. I don't know how often. Not quite as often as Chud Watch, probably, but tell Lupine you love her. Okay. Your mama loves you, Lupine. The kitty is the cleanse, yes. Kitty, say hello to the people, okay? Ow, ow, ouchie. Alright, let's raid someone. Ow, I pinched my arm in the desk. That hurt. It's Xandris's birthday. Yeah, we'll do a little raid for birthday. It is Lupine's mic now, that's true. It's already covered in her hair. Can you see how much hair is on this thing from her rubbing on it? I gotta clean it. It's so gross. Alright. Thanks everyone for coming to the stream. Had a lot of fun. Chat's valid. You're all wonderful. My birthday's on Friday, so get ready for probably Thursday. We're going to do a birthday stream just because I'm going to be busy Friday. Other than that, have a wonderful evening, everyone. See you guys later.